Blood on the counter splattered like rain. Coffee stains tell stories of pain. Spoons clinking whispers in the night. Beneath the night. Shadows dance beneath the neon light. Who drank the poison? Who lit the flame? Everyone's guilty, no one takes the blame. True crime cafe where secrets bleed. Truth the bullet, truth the need. True crime cafe where lies collide. Order up a story no one can hide. Black boots stomping floors of regret. Ashtrays full but we're not done yet. Clock ticks louder, the walls closing. Every scene tastes like original sin. Who's the killer? Who's the saint? Fingerprints smudged, they don't paint. Truth or dare or just pretend? What's the start? What's the end? True crime cafe where secrets bleed. Truth the bullet, truth the need. True crime cafe where lies collide. Order up a story no one can hide. Who's the killer? Who's the saint? Fingerprints smudge, they don't paint. Truth or dare or just pretend? What's the start? What's the end? True crime cafe where secrets bleed. Truth the bullet, truth the need. True crime cafe where lies collide. Order up a story no one can hide. Blood on the counter splattered like rain. Coffee stains tell stories of pain. Spoons clinking whispers in the night. Beneath the night. Shadows dance beneath the neon light. Who drank the poison? Who lit the flame? Everyone's guilty, no one takes the blame. True crime cafe where secrets bleed. Truth the bullet, truth the need. True crime cafe where lies collide. Order up a story no one can hide. Black boots stomping floors of regret. Ashtrays full but we're not done yet. Clock ticks louder, the walls closing. Every scene tastes like
All right. Welcome back to the cafe, everybody. It is great to see you. We are open for business again today. I hope you're all having an amazing day today. It's a little rainy and murky here, but you know what? That's okay because we get to come in here and do this together, and that is a hell of a lot more fun to me. So, guys, we are going to be talking about today. It's an open discussion. I'm gonna get into a little bit of the Garza versus Idaho situation, and explain some of that to a lot of people. I guess don't understand that. Also want to go through a document. It's an older document, but I guess there's some interesting things in there. It's the Unsealed Igg Transcript document. Another creator put a video out that had something in it that I thought was interesting that we may hit on at that point and as well. And we're just gonna talk because that's what I like doing is talking and listening and working through these things and trying to figure out what in the absolute hell is going on here. I'm angry, folks. I've been real angry for a few days here, and it just gets better and better every day, and more anger comes out because I'm just over this whole thing. It don't make no sense. We're going to talk about that too. So thank you all for joining me today. Please share this out. Hit the like button when you do come in here. Let everybody know what we're doing. And well, guess what, folks? You know what comes next when we do this thing. So that being said, welcome back, everybody. Thank you again for joining us here at the cafe today. We're open for business. Guys, grab a seat, get comfortable, find a place that you will be comfortable. We're going to be here for a little bit. Grab a coffee, tea, whatever it may be. Please come inside, sit down, and have a conversation with me. Plenty to talk about. The link is pinned to the top for anybody that wants to join me for the open discussion side to this. Everybody is welcome. If you're new, you know you just got to show me your face in the background so I can make sure you're going to come up and show your face and not your waist. That is why we do that. Thank you so much. Congrats. Good trouble for 4 months of being here. Happy day anniversary to you, and I appreciate you so very much, ma'am. Come on and grab a seat, guys. Share it out. Again, let everybody know what we're doing over here at the cafe. I do want to say thank you because a lot of you guys I saw this morning at Miss Atlanta's Truth and Transparency. I want to thank you for supporting that amazing creator and everything that she does. She puts out a lot of hard work, folks. I appreciate seeing others in this community support other creators, as well as earlier I seen a lot of you guys at Willie's. Thank you for supporting him as well, folks. I appreciate seeing this community supporting multiple creators that are doing this for the right reasons. Miss Jules of all trades, I appreciate those of you that support her as well. I've seen those, and I you guys are amazing. And of course, for each and every one of you, nothing but love for all of you that support me here at the cafe. I appreciate that so very much. So thank you to all of you and every one of you. And I want to thank once again my amazing and awesome moderation team, the Blue Crew. They do nothing but amazing things. And I appreciate each and every one of them for being here every single day. Because without them, as you've heard me say for years, I couldn't, wouldn't, nor shouldn't ever try to do this without them. They make this happen. I am extremely grateful for each one of them. Truly. Speaking of amazing and beautiful peeps, who do we have here with us today? The Miss Positive, the amazing Miss Paula Fitzhenry. Welcome back, dear. Good to see you. Of course, good trouble. Always happy to see you. SRBBBBB. Good to see you. Miss Lacey, you as well. The megastar, Miss Meg. Good to see you. So happy to have you in the house with us. Rowena, always happy to have you here. The cat lady from up north. Thank you so much for joining us, Canadian cat lady. Great to see you. Miss Tandy is in here, I think, on her lunch break. Good to see you, Miss Tandy. Great to have you here always. Yvonne Poole, welcome back. Doc Terry's in the house. I've missed you so very much, Doc. Great to see you. Wonderful to have you in the house today. Thank you so much for joining us. Witchy, welcome back to you. Great to see you. And of course, Murky Piglet, great to see you. The Murky Bacon. We love it, love it. Good to see you, Murky. Always happy to have you here. Always so helpful and appreciative of you being so helpful. Steve W, welcome back, my brother. Good to see you today. Hope you're doing well. Simply Solo and Yinzal. Great to see you, Simply. Thank you for being here today. You are so very much appreciated. Gracefully Salty as well. Great to see you. It's going to come in and out, guys. We're getting better, but it's going. Back and forth. That voice. I know. We're working on it. Come on in. Grab a seat. Get comfortable. Let's see who else do we have in the house. Give it a minute, guys. Give it a minute to roll through so I can see everybody. And if I haven't hit you yet, I'm not ignoring you. I promise I will catch up with you. Excuse me. Let me see. Show. Let's see. Who else do we have up here? Swamp Bros. Miss Kiki's in the house. Love to hear from you today, Miss Kiki. If you're available, I just appreciate you being here so very much. Anna Zorman, good to see you. Bobby X, welcome back to you, brother. And of course, Dag Burn, Johnny Gobble's Dead Floozy Mama, Miss Diane, great to see you today. Thank you for joining us. Let's see who's at the bottom down here. Come on in, guys. Grab a seat. Fizzy's fizzing around again. Great to see you, Fizzy. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the purple hearts, guys. For those of you that dropped those, it is so very much appreciated in memory of Wisdom Speaks. That way she can always join us here every single day with them purple hearts. We miss her so very much, but she will always and forever be in our hearts. Mittens for Kittens, welcome back. Good to see you, Raquel. Oh, well, good to see you today. The camera police are in the house, folks. Behave. You don't want to go out in cuffs, folks. Behave. Good to see you, Karma. Thank you for joining us. Come on in, everybody. Grab a seat. Get comfortable, if you will. Let's get this thing moving. I'm going to give it some time to get some peeps in here. Takes people some time to get in here. They got to find a parking spot. You know how that goes. They got to pull in, get their purse or their bag or whatever, and then they got to walk in the front door, and then they got to find a place to sit and get comfortable. It takes time, folks. I get it. I understand. It's okay. But we'll get there. Miss Noel, the lovely Miss Noel's in the house. Welcome back to you, Noel. Good to see you today. I'm telling you, I know it is. It's always, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to work on the parking situation. It's expensive, though. It's hard. I'm working on it. I'm trying to expand if I can. We'll see. But if you find a good spot, keep it. You know how that works. Sorry about that, Mitten. So sorry. Come on in, guys. Grab a chair, grab a seat, grab a bench, whatever it is. Woman Power 101. Great to see you today. Thank you for being here. Of course, Gen 7, welcome back to you. Samira Dalby, good to see you today. Welcome back to the Meatballs. Thank you guys for jumping in the sauce with us today so we can spill some of that sauce out here in YouTube world. Appreciate that very much. They do hand out parking tickets. Yes, so make sure you're not parked. You're parked in a legal spot, folks. We don't want to have that. I would feel so bad. So bad. Cat K's in the house today. Miss Cat, good to see you. Thank you for joining us again. To all my amazing Blue Crew moderators, I appreciate each and every one of you guys for joining us today. You're all so very amazing. Couldn't do it without you. Thank you. Sunshine Girl, welcome to you. Good to see you. I love seeing the new faces. We are still growing little by little, folks. As I love it. Let's not talk about wolf spiders here. You don't want me to leave. Summer Thunder. Good to see you in the house today. Good to have you. I appreciate you. Yes, and don't forget, just like Mittens just said, guys, no parking on the dance floor, y'all. Come on now. Samira, good to see you, dear. Come on in, everybody. Come on. Can I get my parking validated? Oh man, I guess I can do that. But you ain't allowed to leave yet, so I ain't validating nothing. You gotta wait a while. No pictures. No pic. I got bad. I got them bad this time of year. I just killed 4 of them in the past 2 days. And I'm not talking like little itty bitty ones. They found their way inside my house. Caden had one in his bedroom. I had one in the kitchen. And I fell asleep on the couch yesterday and I woke up and there was one on the ceiling. And you want to talk about moving fast? You have no clue. And I'm telling you guys, like they're coming in this big. That's too big for me. I'm sorry. Nah, you gotta wait, Raquel. You gotta wait. We ain't done yet. You gotta wait. Be careful, SRB. We'll be here when you get back. Oh yeah, yeah. It's just that, and I live near a swampy area and a river, so they come left and right. They're trying to find their way inside. Thank you so much, Meg. Again, everybody, as we all know, because I say it all the time, um, donations and tips or any kind of financial support is never ever expected here in the cafe. But guys, I promise you, it's so very much appreciated. It does help to keep my internet paid. It helps to keep my channel running so I can come do this every single day. So thank you to anybody that chooses to support us in that fashion. Whether it be Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Super Chat, Super Stickers, whatever it is, God bless. It is so very much appreciated. Thank you all so very much. And thank you, Meg, for that again. Murky says, what about barking spiders, or does that subject stink? I think that's a funky subject, to be honest with you, Murky. Very funky. Caught in a jar. Hell no. Give me 1 minute while you guys are finding a spot to sit. I'll be right back. Got to grab something. All right. I can't have people come into the cafe if I don't even have coffee. So, again, thank you for that, Meg. You're such a darling. Spiders are nasty. Nasty caca. Stargazer, hello and welcome. Micro Blue, welcome back to you. Good to see you. Hey. Yay. Let's see. Did I miss anybody else? Good trouble here. No, I think I'm catching. We got 64 peeps in the house, 41 likes. Please hit that like button, go guys, and see if we can hit this in, get this in that algorithm. I got hit by one of those the end of last winter, Meg, right on my leg too. You guys remember that? That was nasty. I caught that real quick. Otherwise, I would have had some serious problems. Right on my thigh. I woke up. I thought maybe I just got bit by something small. And within 24 hours, it was like that. And it was turning black around it. I caught it quick enough, though. That scared me, my wife, a lot. Good afternoon, Stargazer. Wonderful to have you here with us. It's great to see some of these old faces in here, guys. Doc Terry, I've missed Doc Terry very much. Well, thank you, True Seeker. It's great to see you. And Moonlit Baby's in the house. Eddie. Good to see you, Eddie. Thank you for joining me, buddy. Looks like Mittens dropped a super sticker already. A pair drinking coffee. That's pretty cool, Mittens. Thank you for that. I appreciate that so very much. God bless. So generous. Let's see. Come on in, guys. Grab a seat. Get comfortable. Or beavers, are you nuts? No. No. No spiders are okay. My house, because I live on a farm in the country, is right now. I don't even like the daddy long legs because they creep me out. My house is infested on the outside. They're all over my house, and I'm talking like the big ones like this. They're everywhere you look. You see daddy long legs all over the house. And we're getting the nasty ones inside the house. And them little black fuzzy jumpy things too. I hate them things. I've been finding those lately. Hell no. No, Meg. I don't know where you're at, but no. No, you can't have them snakes. I got snakes out here too. They don't bother me because they eat the spiders, but at least I've been told that. Yes, ma'am. Wonderful to see you. Sunshine Girl, great to see you. Camel spiders? What in the hell are you talking to? Bye. You find a camel spider, you better burn the house down. I love all my Aussie friends too, by the way. Angel, and there's a few others, but I think Tara, a couple other people, but you can keep your spiders over there too. My friend Lisa used to come in here with us. She had one on the corner of her monitor, folks, and she's explaining, showed me this thing. I don't know that it was a camel spider, but it was that big. Okay. And I'm like, Lisa, go burn your house down, grab a change of clothes, and get out. Okay. I'm good. No need. Aquarian, good to see ya. Joanna Bell, welcome to you. Good to see you today. 300 laps, good to see you. Kara, she's from, I think so, 300. I think you're right. We have a lot of friends from the UK, Ireland, Scotland, and we appreciate all of them. Camel spiders are in Afghanistan. That's kind of what I thought. I was going to say, if you got a camel spider, burn your house down and move, because no, we don't get them around here. Cute. Not one spider is cute. None of them. None of them. I don't care what you say. They're not cute at all. Listen, y'all, we will fight. Princess Consuela Banana Hammock. Welcome to you. I love your name. Consuela Banana Hammock. Yeah, the jumpy ones, because you go to kill it and they're all over the damn place. Come on in, guys. Go grab a seat. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Sunny Edits, welcome back to KG. You cried. I think everybody cried when Charlotte died, Meg. That was a very emotional story. That book was very emotional. Dockett's in the house. The Docket Decoder. Check him out. What's happening, bro? Yeah, them daddy long legs they're it's crazy. Like they were there one day, they weren't, and then the next day there was like 300 of them outside. I don't like anything that crawls on me. I'm sorry. Nope, not even itsy bitsy one. Itsy bitsy's too much for me. I will kill that one too. WB, good to see you today. No. Hell, there was a spider. Lisa was telling me about a screaming spider, something in Australia that chased her brother into a truck. And it was big, the size of a small puppy or something like that. I said, then you need to move. Like, move from Australia to here. Get away. Any place that has stuff like that, you don't need to live there at all. Good God, Tandy, what are you trying to do to me? What is that? No. No. Ew, yuck. Stop it. We don't do spiders in this house at all. Yeah, this spider chased her brother into the back of a pickup truck, and it was, she said, that big, screaming, running across the ground, screaming. Nope. 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 Bye. See? Uh-uh. No way. Yeah, try to show a spider to my wife. Watch what happens to you. I dare you to try to show my spider. Oh, my wife a spider. She will kill you to get away from the spider, to get away from it. No. I almost wrecked my car one time because there was one that was coming down off of a web from like where the visor is. It was coming out, like she screamed and flipped, like smacked me, and I almost wrecked the car. I had to pull over and find this little itty bitty spider. Who was that? Somebody just dropped some memberships. I just seen them. Who was that? Or a membership. Miss Cat dropped 5. Thank you so much, Cat Cake. Wow. It looks like Doc Terry got one already, Doc. Aries Fire. Congratulations. Tony Du Wong, Lisa Hawkins, and Esther Hahn. Congratulations to you. All of you guys. Welcome to the sauce. We got 5 new meatballs jumping in. Yeah, we hate spiders bad. I know they're good for certain things, you guys, but when you live where I live, they infest everything. I have to go once a week and de-web and de-egg my whole front porch area because they take it over. And they're all the wolf spiders, okay? Tons of them. And the orb weavers. They're gross. And they get big out here. I mean big. Caden found one in the garage last week that was probably about that big around. I'm good. So I don't go in the garage now. Because I asked him, I was like, well, did you kill it? He was like, no. I said, so you let that thing go loose in my garage? And he was like, well, I ain't touching it. And I said, okay, well, I ain't going to the garage till wintertime when it dies and it freezes. Leave them up. No, because then they hatch, Raquel. That's what's been happening is the wolf babies have been hatching from all the eggs. And they're looking for a warm place to be because it's been colder around here lately. The egg, yeah, there's tons of them all over the place. I've been shot back and sucking them all up and then burning the stuff in the fire pit that I get out of the shot back. Burning the baby eggs. We can, but it's expensive. But we've already talked about next year. We're going to look into spraying all around our house to get those, to keep them away. Somebody said you can put peppermint oil like on your windowsills and around different areas, and they don't like that and it attracts them. So we'll see. We also got ground hornets really bad. They have taken over one whole side of my front yard. So when you cut the grass, you kind of got to dodge, dip, and move as they're flying around your head. Yeah, that's the only bad thing about living out in a country area. Bugs and critters, lots of them. We don't have ants. Well, we did beginning of spring. We had them big. Ants were like that big, you guys. The big carpenter ants. Because I have trees all around me, and I have a bunch of pine trees, which is where these other spiders come from too. That's exactly what I've said. I did that too, Meg. I stepped on one time. I smacked it with a stick in my garage at the other house I lived in, and it had babies on its back. And when I smacked it, they all spread, and I jumped. I did the jumpy dance for about 10 minutes, trying to step on them all. Them big ones? Yeah, they are. I am good to see you. P Fox, welcome back to you. CJag, great to see you. We got 105 peeps in the house with 62 likes. Let's see if we can make it match. Tony DeWong, great to see you. Gen 7. And welcome to the new meatballs and everybody else that's jumping in here. I appreciate you guys so very much. Guys, please make sure. What's wrong, Moonlit? Lucy's in the house. Yeah, it was the one that was in my garage. It was about that big, and about that big. And I seen that thing, and I hit it with a stick. It was a hockey stick. As soon as I did, 30 of them took off running, little tiny ones. And I was like, what? No. I was tap dancing all over my garage. I got them all. Yeah, those are gross. I don't like the way they carry their babies at all. Ew, I don't like them either. Yeah, the poisonous ones are gross. I get them things in my basement. Those but they're attracted to water. Silverfish things, I hate them things too, with all the thousands of legs. Anything that's got more than 2 legs, I don't like. Sorry. Except for dogs and cats. Luchy Lou, good to see you. In Stitches, good to see you. Flying ant things, those are gross too. Yes. Mayhem Miracles, welcome to you. Truth Seeker. Spiders with babies. Gross, gross, gross. Centipedes. I don't like nothing like that, guy. I can deal with snakes. We get them big black. They got the big pincher things in front of them. The beetles. I don't remember what they're. I know what they're called. I can't think of it. We get those out here sometimes. Scorpions. Jesus Christ. No scorpions here. Not palmetto bugs. There's something else they're called, but I don't like them either. Good to see you too, Mayhem. Deborah Acklin, always happy to see you. Big cricket spider. What? Ew. Stop it. I'm getting all itchy and weird now. Scorpions. Yeah, thank God we don't have that kind of climate to have scorpions here. Hell no, Fizzy. That's crazy, Good Trouble. You need to move. Just move. Come back up north here. The roly-poly little gray things that crawl. Yeah, those are gross too. I don't like them. Yeah, I got snakes all over. I got black snakes, garter snakes. We got riverbed rattlers out here. Cicadas are disgusting. I can't stand them things either. This year we had those something flies that they kill the cicadas. We had thousands of these things. They look like little sweat bees, but they're not. Some kind of fly. We had thousands of them this year. And because my neighbor down the road is growing soybeans, again, every other year he rotates between corn and soybeans, big fields of it, we get them orange beetle things. And my house is white until they land on the side of it. And there's millions of them, and my house turns orange. It sucks a bit. It really does. Oh, my God. No, Meg. No. Bug bags. Bed bugs are bad. Yes, I watched it one time, Cat Lady, and I had a nervous breakdown. I think I was 13 or 14 when I watched it. I don't like lizards, bugs, none of that kind of shit. Just don't. Yeah, the giant flying roaches down in Florida. When I lived down in Florida, I first ran into them. I was like, what the hell are these things? And living in the country, guess what? I get it all. I get rodents. I see mice. I've had mice in my house. I took care of that issue though. Lots of different insects. We have coyotes, bobcats. I swear I got a Bigfoot out here. I got the Mothman living in my backyard over there. A Bigfoot somewhere over here within the woods. I got all sorts of weird shit out here. I don't really think it's a Bigfoot, but I seen something one time that was way too big, probably a bear. But the Mothman thing definitely lives back here. My moms will tell you about that one. They know. I do have a cat. He helps with the mice, and the moles. He always leaves me. Usually once, twice a week, I get a mouse or a mole on the front porch by the door. And I got to watch because I got Humper and the Dust Mop, my dogs. When we let them outside, we got to watch because we have very large hawks out here that like to grab small things from the ground. Yes, Truth Seeker. I have some creature that lives off in the right side of the woods next to my house that we've called it the Mothman because I have no idea what the hell it is, unless it's some kind of a mutated 500-year-old owl or something. That's the only thing it makes any sense. It's very large. When it flies, it sounds like a pterodactyl. Okay, and it's weird looking, and we only see it at night. It ain't Dogman. It flies. It's huge. Come on in, guys. Grab a seat. Again, the link is pinned to the top of the chat. If you'd like to join me, it's not a bat either. It's white, gray, white. Somebody thinks it's a specific type of an owl that we have here. It attacks like small animals and rabbits and things. And I only see it every so often. Well, actually, we don't even really see it too often at all. We hear it more than anything. I've tried to, Mayhem. I can't catch it. Miss Charlene, welcome to you. 115 peeps, 77 likes, guys. Come on now. Hit that like button, please. We are catching it up for sure. No, I don't think so, because like I said, it flies. Hey, Sandra, good to see you. Docket, good to see you again. My daughter got attacked by a great horned owl in front of our house. Jesus. That's crazy, bro. They do that. They do that sometimes. I watched a video of some woman that got attacked and it split her head wide open. It's crazy. Elizabeth Wagner, good to see you. Somebody sent, Molly found a picture in Mama Bear, pictures of these things. They're a specific type of owl. They're scary as looking as hell. And they're huge. I mean, like as big as my granddaughter, if not bigger, standing like huge. And the wingspan is like between 6 and 8 foot wide. Yeah, that's what this thing does. When it makes noises, it's got a very high pitched screech. You can hear the wings when it's flying, and you can see it's a very wide wingspan, and they sound like I said, like pterodactyl wings. Woof, woof, you know what I mean? You can hear the wings before you see it, and it's monstrous. And it's through my shade on my back deck. There's like a big thing of shade that we have going around it. You could see it barely. Usually it's at night around sunset or later. And it's like a gray, white, blackish. It's weird colored, multiple colors. It's really strange. I can't remember what the hell the name of that type of an owl was that we saw, but it's got a very, very high pitched screech. And that's what I called it. WB Jeepers Creepers. I can't remember. All right, guys. 112 of you. Is it a bar? Nope. No. It's a different something horned owl of some sort. I can't remember the name of it. It's ugly as hell, and scary, and monstrously huge. There was a guy in a photograph that they sent me that was standing next to this thing, and it was half the size of him. Ooh, Jessica, that's not good. Not good at all. Starts with an H. Meanie, good to see you. For some reason, I'm thinking it has to do with Greek. Oh, really? Well, I'm not far from where the Mothman scenario happened either, folks. I can get there in within an hour. So there were other places that the Mothman was seen too. Is that what it? Maybe that is a great harpy owl. Thank you. Yes, I think that might be what it was. Hang on a second. Yep. This is it. Look at this thing. And you tell me that this wouldn't freak you out. Harpy owl or harpy eagle or something like that. Either way, look at this thing. And its talons are insane. Hang on. Come on, show it. That's not it. These old ones, No, that's the harpy eagle. I'm sorry. Hold on a minute. Or maybe that was it, the harpy eagle. I'm telling you how big this thing is. Maybe that's the photograph. Okay, yeah, this is what everybody thinks this was. My mod when we were trying to figure this out. There it is. Look at that thing. Look at this guy sitting next to this thing, how big that thing is. Yep, same photo. You see that thing? How big that is? Nope. That's why I said. Leave it alone. You ain't playing, I ain't gonna mess with it. I want it to leave me alone. And yes, it's real. It is real. These things are real. No lie. And I didn't know that owls could get this big, you guys. Holy shit, they can get this big. All right, y'all. Come on in, grab a seat. We're about to kick this off. It looks like a damn gargoyle, don't it? And the noises. Mmm. Yeah. Unless they're attacking something, and then it's a horrible screeching. Anyway, so we made jokes and called it the Mothman. So the Garza versus Idaho situation I have in the title, guys, we're going to be discussing is another case that happened that if Brian were to take advantage of would definitely help his situation for sure. Um, and that's why I wanted to discuss it so people could understand it. Holy Jesus, Meg, that's monstrous. Eagles are huge, believe it or not. Monstrous, huge. Okay, people don't understand how big some of them can get. Look at that thing. Their talons are bigger than our hands, guys. Imagine them things. Same thing the owls have. They're beautiful though. We have eagles. We have a couple eagles around here that we get to watch, and they're big, but they're huge. I'm like seriously huge. True Crime X, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, that's a big one. Beautiful though, and they're endangered here, so you, of course, you don't mess with them at all. At all. You can be put in prison for doing that. I found out, which is crazy. Them heartbeat things though freak me out. I think that's what we've had out here, to be honest with you. An irrational fear of geese. Good to see you, Zakali. Thank you for joining us. And swans. We also have, because I have a pond across the street from me, we get cranes, a lot of cranes and a lot of geese and stuff out there. I have a lot of wildlife, guys. I feel like I live on a wildlife preservation sometimes because of the things I see. I have deer in my front yard, all sorts of stuff. It's beautiful to see these things, but Evelyn, good to see you. Oh, yeah. I am always tired, Evelyn. All right. 115. Okay, so the link is pinned if anybody wants to join. If not, no worries. I get it. Okay, let's see. Where am I going to start here? Let me check something before I do anything because I always like to check. Oh yeah, that's another creator. Harsh put out something I thought was interesting too that we had discussed. We might review a little bit of that. I did, Meg. I put it up on the screen, Meg. It's huge. Give me a minute here. By the way, Kiki, you're welcome to join us as well. Always happy to have you. I guess I'll start with. Hang on here. Let me start with the one document, as we will discuss. We did review this once before, but we didn't point out everything in this. And I want everybody to understand a lot of this. This is when they were discussing things with Payne. Sarah D. Irish, good to see you. Deborah Ackland. Vivian, welcome to you. Becky. Matt Amlo, good to see you, brother. Thank you for joining us today. Come on in, everybody. Yeah, this is an interesting document from testimony from Payne, and I wanted to go through this again. Alisi brought this up on Willie's panel and asked if we could review this. He didn't get a chance to, and I said I would cover it here. I'm going to skip through what. Well, I guess I could read part of that. And this explains some things that make you question things. And again, I like breaking this down. That's why I like when Eddie joins me, because we usually can break things down. And if I don't catch something that's stated in a document, he will, and we can stop and go break it down. You know what I mean? Somebody lives in Bedrock. That's cool. I have an anteater for my vacuum. That's hilarious, WB. I love it. That's why Eddie said that. That's too funny. You guys are a mess. Great to have you, Steve. Always happy to see you. Okay, guys. Make sure to hit that like button on the way through the door. Let's throw this up here. I hope Alisi's in here. That way, because she's the one that wanted this reviewed. So I hope there she is. Yes, she is. Right there. Boom. Near my kid's school, we have protected park section and like progressive, angry, mean birds. My gotcha. Where are you at, Alicia? I was wondering. I wanted to ask you that earlier. I know you're obviously overseas, but your accent, I couldn't quite place where you were. It was beautiful accent, by the way. A barred owl killed Kathleen Peterson and her husband got. Wow, that's crazy. That is crazy, Stardazer. See if I can make that a little bit bigger. I guess I can't. Do I have to download it? Maybe. But it's multiple pages. I may not be able to blow this up for you guys. I'm sorry if I can't. I will try. It says that it's done. Now can I do it? I bet you I can't. Maybe. Okay, that'll be big enough there. Miss Krista, I guess she's not joining us today. Jen, that's great. So this again was the IGG expert transcript test from the text of testimony again. Jesse Schul, good to see you, buddy. The redacted proceedings. Okay, before blah blah blah, we know that certified transcript appearance again shows all of the defense and prosecution team. Direct exam by Ann Taylor, cross by Miss Jennings, and redirect by Miss Taylor again. With Ryland Nowlin, Matthew Gammett, Daniel Hellwig, I'm sorry, Leah Larkin. And these are the IGG experts, guys. That's why we're... And it points out some very interesting stuff for those of you that did not know. This was a closed proceeding, hence the reason why it was redacted per se. In the closed proceedings, it starts and says, let's go on the record. In-state versus Koberger. Present, we all know who was present for that. Miss Taylor, Ashley Jennings, the entire, both prosecution and defense, okay? Along with the experts that were there. And it says, before we get going this morning, I understand the first portion would be, the hearing will be to put on evidence related to the IGG suppression and the Franks issue. And so I wanted to kind of go through the Franks as well at some point, because we never really truly did that. And I know that this is all said and done, but this is important stuff to understand as to why. Okay. And what? Lucci. I don't think so, dear. Unless, of course, Eddie wants to join me and he wants to play that game. We can do it. It's up to you. Sandra, good to see you. In terms of witnesses, what are we doing in terms of excluding and or exceptions to the exclude based on experts? Sorry. Ann says, Your Honor, the parties have stipulated that the witnesses may be inside the courtroom for the entirety of the proceeding and that the state has their witness. That's a remote witness, and that's fine, so on and so forth. Okay, so that person's appearing. Let me get to the point. I don't want to go through all this. I just want to get to the point where they start talking about it. Ann says, Your Honor, there was a stipulation that all of the exhibits that were attached to the IGG motion and the Franks motion would be admitted. I'm happy to give the court my copies. That was about 1,000 pages worth of stuff. So I didn't get to print and haul down the extra copy, but I'm happy to give the court my copy if the court wants a hard copy. And of course, Hippler says, I've got a copy in the file. The only problem is trying to find out what you're talking about quickly if you're referring to a distinct item within that. Typically, I'm provided copies of the specific exhibits witnesses go over, and I'll do my best, but... And Ann says, I'm happy to provide the court my copy or use the Elmo so that the court can see, which is like an overhead projector. Okay, so here we go. It says the defense can call their first witness. Ann says, Your Honor, the defense would like to call Brett Payne. Here we go. Pay attention to some of these things that are said, folks. Just to make sure we're not live, right? They didn't want anybody seeing this, okay? Do you solemnly swear? Of course, they swear him in, all that. He says, I do, blah, blah, blah. You have been duly sworn in. Direct examination. Good morning. So I'm just going to bounce this back and forth so you guys understand it. Hold on. Okay. Ann says to him, Good morning, ma'am. Will you state your full name, please? Brett Payne. And how is your last name spelled? He spells it out. What do you do for a living? I am the detective corporal at Moscow PD. How long have you been at Moscow PD? Almost 7 years now. Prior to Moscow, did you have law enforcement experience? Yes, ma'am. What was it? I was at Military Police Corps in the U.S. Army for 3+ years prior to coming to Moscow. Are you post-certified? Yes, ma'am. In the course of your responsibilities with Moscow, were you handling any investigation involving homicides? At 11/22, yes, ma'am. What was your role? I was assigned lead detective after about the first 24 hours in that case. And does that mean that you have responsibility? 1 second. Sorry, my wife just asked me a question. Well, welcome, Docket. How are you today, brother?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you joining me and giving me some company. Have you been through this document ever?
Yes.
Okay. And anything about this that you find interesting?
I've not been through it recently, so I'm looking forward to going through it here.
And that's why I wanted to go back to it, considering what we've learned recently and what she brought up when she would Alicia was talking about it. It made me remember some of the things we did look at, or I did look at, as compared to where we're at now, and with the case and what happened when it came out. You know what I mean? So it may come off different in some ways, in my opinion, is all I'm saying. So thanks for joining me, bud. Okay, as such, did you participate in a search for suspect? Yes, ma'am. And when was the first time that you heard Bryan Kohberger's name? Now, take notes on some of this stuff, guys, because some of these things have changed, and some of these things I do believe truly are not absolute truth. So understand that too. When was the first time you heard Bryan Kohberger's name? The first time I heard Bryan Kohberger's name was December 19th of 2022. That I do not believe is true, folks. That's my opinion. You take it how you want, but that's my opinion. I believe they knew his name in November. Late November, I'll say. And what was that a result of? That was a result of investigative genetic genealogy that was being undertaken by the FBI. And again, I believe that's not true. Believe me, I promise you. And we'll discuss it here little by little as I read through. Thank you, Meg. Okay, hold on a minute here. So he's stating that the only way that he got Bryan's name in December 19th was because of genetic genealogy, basically, and I'm calling that out as no. We had a phone call that evening, and we were told Bryan Kohberger's name. That's relating to the tip that they got from the FBI. They're saying, and before that, Mr. Kohberger was not on your radar. No, ma'am, that's a lie. Before December 19th was the FBI cast team member collocated with you. Yes, ma'am. How long had he been collocated with you? I don't remember exactly, but it had been several weeks at that point. And was that Nicholas Balance? Yes, ma'am. And what other FBI team members were collocated with you? Goodness, a lot. We had Technical Assistant Maria Tyndall, SA Special Agent Jacobson, and numerous other FBI special agents that were there to assist. So by the time it was December 19th and you first heard of Bryan's name, had you reviewed videotapes? Yes, ma'am. How many hours of videotapes do you think you reviewed? And now I want you guys to calculate in your mind how many times Payne says, I don't know, I don't recall, and I don't remember in his testimony, folks. It's quite interesting. I don't remember a lot. I can't give you an accurate representation. So in those videotapes, did you focus in on any particular ones that were of interest to you? Yes, ma'am. In particular would be the blank. Are you talking about addresses that were? How would you like me to refer to them? How you nicknamed the cameras? So the first one was the 1112 King Road. It was a surveillance camera, an exterior surveillance camera on a house that was immediately to the northeast of 1122 King Road. There was some footage from a Linda Lane camera. I forgot the address off the top of my head. And there was footage from the A&W, which is at the corner of Louder and South Main, or Highway 95. There was footage from an address on Indian Hills. There was also footage from a Ridge Road camera. And that's how we referred to them, was basically by those names. Now, so that you guys understand, a lot of you have watched Pavarotti's videos and this and that and everything else, and other creators that have put it out there based on headlights on trees. How many times have we heard that? That's what this is. That's what these footages are, is seeing headlights come across the tops of trees, okay? That's what they saw. That's nothing more. So that's where they're getting these from, sadly. But anyway, with those references in mind and keeping December 19th in mind, which of those cameras were your focus before you learned of Bryan Kohberger's name? I would say all of them were of importance before that. And it was later that other cameras became important. Is that correct? Those were the main ones we relied upon for vehicles in particular. Is what those ones were. I'm going to return to that in just a minute, but I want to talk to you about interviews. Did you interview any people in relation to the case before December 19th? Yes, ma'am. And did the other officers interview people? Yes, ma'am. Were some of the people the roommates of the people at 1122? Yes, ma'am. Did you review other officers' work as well? Yes, ma'am. And did you have regular meetings with other officers about the status of the investigation? Yes, ma'am. Did you have any role in deciding to pursue investigative genetic genealogy? Yes, ma'am. It was a collaborative decision amongst the command team to go that route. But yes, I was part of that. Were you part of the discussions during the process of the identification? Yes, ma'am. Were you aware that Othram Laboratories began the work on the investigative genetic genealogy? Yes, ma'am. What kinds of information did you receive from Othram? I don't remember what was received from Othram directly. I knew that they were conducting their specific type of work, and I don't remember exactly what they provided to us. Gotta love it. Hey, Mama D. You're the lead detective, and you don't remember what the main part of your investigation offered you, but okay. Did you receive some documents from them? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Do you know how many documents you received? I do not. Now, here's another thing I have, Doc, and I'm sure you probably understand what I mean by this too. He knew ahead of time, folks, that he was going to be making this testimony. Okay. They give him plenty of time to know this. So just like anything, if you were going to, yes, SRB, this was the closed part of it that nobody knew about. It was redacted. So if you're going to go to do something like this and you knew 2 weeks ahead of time that you had to testify, to do it the right way, respectfully, would you or would you not prepare yourself by getting the things you needed to get? In fact, they send you a list of the questions that you're going to be asked, in my opinion, to know what's going to go on here and what you're going to be testifying against. No preparation whatsoever, obviously, in my opinion.
Right. If you wanted to be helpful and if you wanted to provide answers, that's what you would do. I don't think that's what he wanted to do.
Not even remotely, my friend. I agree with you. Truly. No, I think he absolutely did the opposite of that, in my opinion. So were you part of the discussion to take the work from Othram and go to the FBI? Yes, ma'am. Well, why was that decision made? Well, from my understanding, granted, this is my first encounter with investigative genetic genealogy. So again, as a collaborative discussion, we decided that because the Idaho State Police Lab and Othram had essentially exhausted their resources, this is how I understood it, that we would move to the FBI because they had more resources available to pursue this particular avenue. Do you know what more resources the FBI had? The only thing I'm privy to was that they had more databases that they could compare the sample to, which, as we know, they used illegally. Okay. They used databases they weren't supposed to use. MyHeritage and things like that. We found that that's not what they're supposed to do. They took shortcuts to get where they needed to get, in my opinion, illegally. What's up, Lana? Good to see you, sis. Thanks for joining us. So, that was the extent of my knowledge. Do you have familiarity with the databases and the rules that apply to those? No, ma'am. I'll save those questions. What was your communication with the FBI about the IgG? So our communications were just via telephone. The sample was sent to the FBI, and I don't remember the date that it was given over to them. But after that, there was very few conversations, and if they happened at all, they were just telephonic, advising us that the process was still in the works and they would let us know when or if they had anything of interest for us. For those of you that are just joining us, guys, this was requested that I go over this, or that we go over this and touch on some of these things. So that's why we're hitting this again. Do you know what files or documents went to the FBI from Othram? Here we are. Like I said, if you're counting them, here's another one. I do not remember. Did you receive documents from the FBI in relation to IGG? Yes. I believe after the fact. After we received Koberger's name, we did receive documents. But I don't remember what they were. Do you know how many documents related to IGG that you received from the FBI? No, ma'am. I believe as part of the discovery, it was in the thousands of pages. But that's the best of my knowledge. Thank you for that. All right. So once you have Mr. Koberger identified, what's your understanding of what that meant to have his name? Just in relation to the overall investigation, is that yes. So the only thing that was given to us was Brian Koberger's name, and that was it. It was conveyed to us by the FBI that it was to be taken as no more than a tip. That was it. So once we received his name, we set about doing basically an independent verification of whether or not he was involved in this crime. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit more now. But do you know why the FBI connected Brian Koberger to this case? So December 20th, if my memory serves, we had a secondary meeting with the FBI via Teams. If memory serves, and they simply walked us through the family tree, how they did that. Now, I don't remember the details of all of that. It was an in-depth conversation that, to be honest, is above my head. But they essentially worked their way through the family tree and arrived at a conclusion that Brian Koberger was a person that we should look into as a tip. Now, I'm sorry, okay? 100%, Alicia, no problem, dear. 100. If I was a lead detective on a quadruple homicide, I would want to understand everything involving this case, every aspect of it. So if I didn't understand, I'm going to ask every question I can to get into that understanding zone. That didn't happen. As if he didn't care, or maybe because he didn't need to, okay? As we all know. So anyway.
Well, it let him be in a position where he got to answer the questions that he wanted to answer. And then he could just simply say, like, I passed that off to somebody else if he didn't want to answer it, or I don't know those details. And so he didn't, if it was helpful to the prosecution, he had the answer. If it wasn't helpful to the prosecution, he didn't know.
Well, here's the problem though, Docket. I think he did understand, you guys, to an extent, at least. I think he understood. And I think that the specific details is what maybe he didn't understand. But like you just said, this allowed him to not go into detail on specific things. I'm pretty sure he got what this was.
I'm not saying he didn't understand it, but he gave him the ability to say he didn't if he didn't want to answer it.
Yes, sir. I do wholeheartedly agree with you. So, and it's just ridiculous, you guys. Completely ridiculous that this went down, because this man, in my opinion, now has lied about too many things. Too many things. It's another reason why it's a good thing we're going over this. And again, that's the extent of my knowledge, how they did that. Well, here we go back with Ian. How was Brian Koberger the name that you received as a tip linked to the case? Well, he wasn't until after December 19th. What item of evidence did they link Brian Koberger to? Well, I'm not sure what you're asking. You said how dumb. That's a very generalized question. What item of evidence did they link him to? How much simpler could that be? I'm not sure what you're asking. Okay. So as far as before December 19th, is that what you're referring to? Yeah. We didn't have one at that point. Now stop right there. They're saying on December 19th, they had nothing to link Brian to this. Okay. Nothing. We know that they're claiming they had the sheath from the day that the day that they were first on scene for the murders. Okay. We all know how this went down. I'm just putting these things out here so you guys can see this for what it is. Yeah, we didn't have one at that point. Well, why did you become interested in learning the identity of Brian Koberger? I'm not quite sure I understand your question. Once again, this guy played games with her through this whole thing, you guys. It's really sad. We were interested in anyone who would have been involved in this. The DNA from the knife sheath was obviously the one thing that we had that we thought was a very strong piece of evidence in the case. But you see, when she first asked a question, Why didn't you say that then, Brett? Again. Anyway, you'll probably see me get frustrated as we go, you guys, because it's very frustrating and irritating, but I apologize ahead of time. So it was that particular piece that we pursued as potential avenue of identifying a suspect. So is it your understanding that the FBI's work said that it was Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the sheath? That is not my understanding. Is anybody confused yet? If you are, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, what is your understanding? My understanding is that the FBI concluded that Bryan Kohberger was a possible source of DNA that we should look into. What are you talking about?
I mean,
Brett?
that's mind games. Like what that he just
That's
said
why
he
we're
didn't know,
doing
and
this.
then he answered the question.
Right. I'm glad you asked to do this, Elise. Because this is proof of the bullshit, you guys. It truly is. So you're telling us basically, he's telling them that no, it's not my understanding that the FBI said that's Bryan's DNA on that sheath.
But it's Bryan's DNA on that sheet.
But it's Bryan's
that's
DNA
why we
on the
looked into it.
What the actual hell? You know what I mean? It's such a joke what they did here. Because he knows that he can only say things a certain way. He can't put things out a specific way, because if he does, he can get in trouble for making certain statements. They did not, to my knowledge, at any point say Bryan Kohberger's DNA is on the knife sheath. Brett Payne just said that. Okay. That was never conveyed to me. On December 20th, when that happened, when he's somebody you should look into, what did you do? Well, we had already started looking into him from the previous evening. So that day, December 20th, we began going through basically our sort of standard investigative procedures that we had been doing throughout the investigation for various leads, to include basic DMV searches, NCIC offline returns, NCIC searches, and we have a database called TLO, which is a credit-based search we use to find basic information. So we started doing all those things, looking for information on Mr. Kohberger. And what you found is that he didn't have a criminal history. Is that right? Yes, correct. So talk to me about going to Pennsylvania for the trash pool. Well, I was not in Pennsylvania for the trash pool. You got to love that one. Hold on one second. Thank you so much for that. Too Fast for Fleas gifted 5 memberships. I can't see who got them because of this bonus pulled up, but that is so very generous, and I appreciate you so much, Fleas. Thank you so much for that. Whoever did receive those memberships, congratulations. Welcome to the sauce. I appreciate you for being in the community and now being in the family. We appreciate that so very much, Fleas. Thank you again.
It looks like Sunshine Girl, Frosty Phantom. She's just a devil woman. Crystal Dawn and Min, maybe.
Awesome. Welcome, guys. Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. Welcome, guys. Again, thank you so very much for that, please. We appreciate that, and welcome to the sauce, you guys. Oh yeah. We're the best part of this is when we hit the experts and we actually get some real truth out of this. It's hilarious. So I'll ask somebody else that later. Now, the way he said that, well, I was not in Pennsylvania for the trash bowl. I'll ask somebody else that later. All right. So after you receive Bryan Kohberger's name and he hasn't been on your radar at all before, is that correct? Or is that right? He says correct. And mind you, folks, it seems like every time Brett Payne had to testify, whether we saw it or not, he was pissed. He did not want to do this. The times that we saw him do it, he was pissed off when they called him back up to the bench. He didn't want to do this at all. That tells you a lot, in my opinion. All right. You had pursued interviews and surveillance video. Had you pursued evidence found inside the scene at 1122? Yes, ma'am. What efforts did you make to pursue unknown Mel B? This is interesting. You have to be more specific. I don't remember exactly where unknown Mel B came from. If I told you the lab report showed unknown Mel B came from a blood spot on the handrail going between the second floor and the first floor, does that help jog your memory? Yes, ma'am. Why did you not pursue that person at that point in time? We had already received Mr. Koberger's name. I'm sorry. She said, why did you not pursue that person? Now, here's his answer. That this is what we've all heard. At that point in time, we'd already received Mr. Koberger's name. And from what my understanding was, entering another DNA profile in Dakotas would remove the previous one that we had from the knife sheath.
This is one of the most absurd of all their lies.
Yes.
This one makes zero sense.
It's dumb. It's beyond.
How in the world Judge Hippler didn't stop him and say, what are you talking about? Had it been the other way, he would have.
Well, if I didn't believe that Hippler worked for the prosecution at this point, because that's what it looks like, I agree with you. He blatantly lied right here, you guys. And I would have loved to be in the courtroom to watch their faces when he said this too.
I'm sure Anne was like,
right.
You know, how do I even respond to that? Like, what is she supposed to say back to that?
I can guarantee the face was Eliza is the one that made the faces. I would have loved to see her face. That would have been great. So after he says that, so if memory serves, the discussion was that we'll hold off. We'll stay with the one from the knife sheath. If we need to, we can address the unknown male B at a later time. They didn't. I want to make sure that I understand your testimony. Were you not aware of unknown male B until after December 19th when you knew Brian Koberger's name? No, ma'am. I was aware of that before, yes. How about unknown male D? Again, you're going to have to be more specific. And he knows all this stuff, you guys. He knows this, okay? Okay, if I told you unknown male D came from a lab report from a sample of blood on some gloves outside the house, does that refresh your memory? Yes, ma'am, it does. So you're aware of that too? Yes, ma'am. I want to back up and talk about the affidavits. I think you told me in a prior hearing that you were the person that wrote Exhibit A or the affidavit in support of the search warrants when it came to looking for things about Brian. Did I understand that right? Yes, ma'am. And that affidavit, when you began, was that on December 23rd to get records. As far as when I started writing the affidavit, is that what you're referring to? The first search warrant that applied to Brian Koberger. I believe that was December 23rd, yes. So when did you begin writing that affidavit? I began writing that affidavit long before that. Okay. It had been a running affidavit because at the beginning of it, there's the walkthrough of the crime scene. There's numerous things. It was a living document. So we just add information to it. I'd say that document started, I don't know, couldn't give an exact date. So they were adding things as they were building their story, folks, that they didn't have. Okay. In my opinion, there was no case. We know that. Okay. And they had to create a case, period. And that's how this went together like it did. Yeah, basically, yes, Meg. Payne is the affidavit, 100%. And he says it right there. So we would just add information to it as they felt that they needed to. So I'd say that document started, and he can't give a date. Okay. I don't know. A couple weeks prior to that, even before we knew who Mr. Koberger's name. So help me understand what parts were added after you knew Mr. Koberger's name. Well, to walk down the line best I can. So obviously there's the initial component, which is the crime scene, the testimony from the roommates. And then after that, it shifts to, I believe the first mention of the first component was that Brian Koberger was pulled over by Corporal Duke on a traffic stop. Now, that's the traffic stop, if I'm correct, that they wouldn't let us see for the longest time. I could be wrong and have this one confused with the other one, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. He was also contacted by WSU police. His vehicle was ran by WSU PD. And then after that, we included, trying to walk down through the thing without it in front of me. Then we included the vehicle information that was about the white Elantra. And after that, we included his residence and that he had hit LPRs or his vehicle had been seen on LPRs between Moscow or Pullman, and Pennsylvania. And then there was the component about where he lived in Pennsylvania. She says, let's go back to that time before you started adding the traffic stop. That affidavit contains some information that you gained from other officers. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And you didn't write large parts of that affidavit. Is that also right? I took a lot of language from experts and other officers and agents. That's correct. Are you aware your affidavit, your living document, was claimed by other people as their own original document? Not giving you credit, but claimed it as their own. Are you aware of this? Yes, ma'am. And are you aware that you probably know because Nick Balance was collocated with you? Did the two of you continually work on language to satisfy what the prosecutor wanted to see for probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Did you and Nick Balance produce a map to show a possible route of travel for your suspect? Yes, ma'am. And Your Honor, I am at defendant's 1A. I can either put it here or approach the court with the map. The Hippler says, can I see what you're referring to? There's been a lot of exhibit A's in this case. Just as housekeeping, you had mentioned, you stipulated to the admission of sounds like a large chunk of records, 1,000 pages. Yes, Your Honor, it's the stack of exhibits that came behind the amended Frank's motion from the defense. The court says, okay, and you want me to search through that to find stuff that you want me to rely on? God, he's such a dick. No matter what, he's always a dick. Taylor Ann says, I don't. I'm happy to give you my copy. She's always trying to give him, whatever. No, I don't mean that. He says, as you know, I entered an order in this case that I'm not going to scour the record to find things that support your claims in this case. Now, you know what? Isn't that kind of his job per se to granted, I understand that judges expect the attorneys to give them, what they need, but I mean, they weren't even giving her what she needed, let alone, again, more proof that this man was not going to help her in any way, shape, or form, folks. Just see it for what it is. You know what I mean? Nothing half-assed. Welcome, David Berg, Yvette Clifton, Amy Conway, when it's DSTU. Meanie, I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody that's jumping in. Joanna Bell, good to see you. Okay, guys, thanks for joining us. So, Payne don't know shit. Once again, shake my head. Page 31. Amen to that one. Nothing half-assed. Wonderful to see you, dear. Okay, so.
Well, and it was clear later on in different hearings how much Hippler had gone through and read the documents when he was able to argue for the prosecution in so many cases. Because there was times that I wondered, like, is he crossing a line into, should he even know this information? Like, part of his job is to remain unbiased. And there was things he made points on or whatever that I was just like, seems like maybe he's gone too far in trying to understand the prosecution's case, that he's given himself away a little bit.
Yes. You weren't here yesterday, I don't think, but we went through some stuff and made point to, he made some statements, Docket, that basically, in a sense, like there were things that were being brought up about Dylan Mortenson's antics, we'll just say per se, and statements, and he defended those things. Somebody would say it as in one way, well, I took it as this, and this, and he goes, well, no, I actually see it this way, and it goes in favor of the state. And it was almost disgusting to see that. He did that way more than once.
Well, I kind of picked up early on, and I've actually done a lot of digging into it and haven't really found anything to support my assumption. But I've wondered if he didn't have some connection to one of the two roommates prior to this, because the way he has talked about them and defended them almost feels personal. And it has since the first time he brought them up. Yes. It's very hard to find anything about him and his family, and I don't want to say anything about his family that I've found or whatever, but I've not found that connection yet, but I've looked.
And I agree with you, because the way that he reacted to Dylan when she gave her impact statement, I've never seen a judge react that way with anybody. Okay. It was very weird. And he was like almost in tears looking at her with her reaction, and it's like, is this your niece or something, bro? You know what I mean? It's just not, I'm not saying that's true, guys, but it's just very strange. Eddie says real quick, he's not going to scour the record. He's not going to even appear half interested when they're speaking to the court because he already had. Yeah, good point, Eddie. So no, that's a good, like a very good reference as far as like a thought. You know what I mean? I've thought that myself, and it's real interesting. So, I'd like to find that. And you're right. It's very hard to find any like real specific personal information on him. He did that. He covered himself real well. That's what I was going to tell you. Do you know that he had part in voting on who would be the judge that would appear for this case?
No.
We found that out yesterday. I had no idea until
Well, his wife has a different last name than him.
Yep.
That's one of the big reasons that's hard to find anything.
Mm-hmm. It'd be real interesting to find that out, though, wouldn't it? Giant conflict of interest, in my opinion. And I gotta wonder. I like that you said that, though, because it's definitely a thought in my mind.
The only thing that I kind of found, and this is not really a connection, but if anybody wants to dig into it, is they're really tied in with the school. They're a Catholic school, and the father of the school is Father Funk. I'll just say that.
Yep. I've heard that before, too. Father Funk. How about that? Something to look into, guys. Do your homework there. Thanks for that, bud. So again, back to where we were. Back to Hitler being Hitler. I'm told I'm going to get a large document to be admitted that doesn't sound like it's going to be the focus of the actual hearing or much of it. And says, well, Your Honor, I do have quite a few more questions for this detective. I'm trying to be mindful of my role here with him as far as Franks and his work in IGG. But when it's time for me to argue Franks, what I planned to do was to argue from the exhibits, which we all know that he didn't allow, any of this stuff. So the plan was to argue from the exhibits, identify them for the court and hand the court my copy. So I don't expect the court to thumb through all the D1, D2s. I just bring another 1,000 pages with me. Or I'm sorry, I didn't bring another 1,000 pages with me. He says, I understand. My concern wasn't so much that what I had in front of me was an actual paper. My concern is littering the record with things that are not referred to. If you're going to refer to specific documents in here, that's fine, but don't expect me to go looking at things that you don't refer to necessarily. God forbid you do anything that you're supposed to do. And says, oh, I absolutely understand that, Your Honor. Those were all put in so that counsel would be advised. He says, the fact that I admit this group of documents does not mean that it is something that can be relied on, absent you actually using it. She says, absolutely, I understand that, Your Honor, and I don't expect the court to read my mind. Thank you for that. And then she's back to questioning Payne. I'm gonna attempt to put this map up here. Is that the map that you and Nick Balance came up with to help with probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm gonna leave that there for just a minute, and I'm gonna ask you some other questions. I want to back up to the part of the first affidavit, and this is asking for the AT&T records. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. We all know the whole controversy behind the AT&T stuff, so just remember that. This is asking, he says, yes, ma'am. And this AT&T record, is that the first set 48 hours of AT&T records? Yes, ma'am, I believe so. And are these AT&T records related to a phone that Mr. Koberger had? Yes, ma'am. All right. And so in doing this affidavit, you have this working document. And I'm going to start with Dylan Mortensen. If I say Dylan Mortensen, you do know who I'm talking about. He says DM, but I'm just giving you the names. Yes, ma'am, I do. And
I've got to jump on a 4:00 call, and I'll try to get back on after that. But
okay, bro, no problem. I'll be here. Just
okay.
Pop back in whenever you're ready. I do. And she says, and she is one of the roommates. Is that right? He says, yeah. Or I'm sorry, no. Right there, it stops and it says, we're sealed, and you can use the name because they're sealed. And says, I can use the name trying to get a habit. By Miss Taylor. It says redacted. Who is she? She was one of the surviving roommates. And how many times was Dylan interviewed by law enforcement at the time that you wrote this December 23rd report? If memory serves, it was 4 times by the 23rd of, okay, remember that, folks. 4 times that they had interviewed Dylan by the 23rd of December, okay? I wish I had Lana's projector. I could show you all these things because I write things too, like she does. So 4 times they interviewed her by the 23rd of December. If memory serves, it was for, I think, 3 or 4. In the affidavit, you wrote a statement that she had heard Kaylee go upstairs, yell, "Someone's here," and run back downstairs. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. And you used the words, "she thought she heard." Do you remember that? She thought she heard. And then Miss Jennings pops in and says, "Your Honor, I'm going to object. I'm objecting based on the scope of what this testimony is supposed to be. My understanding was that it was limited solely to the issue of Franks and IGG." You see how the state popped open and shut that down, tried to shut that down? Gotta love it. Hey, Twiz, what's up, buddy? So back to Hitler saying, "I was just about to ask the question." I don't recall the statements of Dylan being a subject of a motion to suppress separate from the Franks issue. Am I correct about that? Ann says that is correct, Your Honor. Hitler says, "Okay, so we're not at a Franks hearing on that issue. The only issue we are at a Franks hearing on is the IGG." Ann says, "Okay, well, let me rephrase. Let me start from a different place." And, of course, Hitler says, "I'll sustain the objection," by Miss Taylor. Ann goes back to, "Let's go to the part of your affidavit for December 23rd, AT&T-1. The part where you put in things particular to Brian Koberger. You put in that affidavit a traffic stop, I believe, from August in Moscow, Idaho. That is that right?" Yes, ma'am. The traffic stop was that your radar before, was that on your radar before December 19th when you learned of Brian Koberger's name? No, ma'am. That's a lie, in my opinion, folks. I'm just telling you. Again, and I won't call that out every time I see that because that is absolutely a lie to me. The next thing you relied on was a traffic stop at WSU. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Was that traffic stop on your radar before you knew of Brian Koberger's name on December 19th? No, ma'am. That's a lie again. I wish Eddie was up here because he could pull these left and right. I'm telling you. You put in information about front license plates being missed from Pennsylvania cars. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. So the 1112 video did not show enough of the vehicle that you could see whether it had a front plate. Is that right? That sounds correct. Yes. So it was after you learned of Brian Koberger's name that became part of your affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Now, I want you guys to keep something in mind here. They're getting ready to go into this. Let's talk about the vehicle identification for a minute before I run back down through the rest of that affidavit after Brian was identified. When you worked with Special Agent Immel to identify a vehicle, which Immel or ML, however you say it, that's their specialty, okay? That's what they do. They deal with cars and all that kind of shit. When you worked with Special Agent Immel to identify a vehicle, was there more than one vehicle he identified? Here we go. I don't believe there was. If memory serves, it was just a Hyundai Elantra. Would you agree that he was most comfortable with the years 2011 to 13? Here comes Jennings objecting. Your Honor, for the same reason, I don't understand the scope related to IGG. Ann was trying to get something on record here that they were not allowing her to do it. Okay. Now, Payne is talking about this car as she goes into this. Okay. At this point, you guys understand something. Payne had already done in their investigation that whole thing he did where he knew at this point that that car that is seen looping is an unmarked police car that had Tesdale and Rosie in it. Didn't say a word about this, not one time. I hope everybody sees the problem with that and understands they blatantly kept that from the court and lied and kept going with this whole thing here. But anyway, just making sure that that is in the understanding part of your guys' brain with this, because that's a serious thing to me. Okay. So Ashley Jennings, Hushley, I should say, she objects to this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Ian says, Your Honor, I'm going to ask for a little leeway on this one. I think that it will be clear in about 2 more questions, and it is a sealed proceeding that I'll be arguing it as Frank's. And the prosecution is so worried at this point that the defense is going to point these things out that are that big of a deal. They don't want them talking about this shit at all, folks, period. Not even in a closed hearing. It's sad. So Hitler says, I don't want to pollute the record, so approach. And then the bench conference says, Ian says they looked for 2011 to 13, and it was their bolo. It was after Brian was identified by IGG, they expanded the search. And Hitler says, that relates to what? She says it's going to relate to Frank's, but it has to do with the IGG and when they identified him. Basically, what that says, folks, is that they expanded the search after they identified Brian and added it in very conveniently because they knew what vehicle he had, and then added that into the bolo. You see what I'm saying? If you guys, does anybody not understand what I'm saying? Because I have a hard time explaining things sometimes, and I want to make sure you guys get it. Anybody, please let me know if you don't understand what I'm saying there. Hey, Hemisphere, good to see you, bud. Hemisphere says he knew that Tisdale and Rosie was patrolling the area that night, which in my opinion gave them the idea to make it fit to frame BK just because he has a white launcher. I can go with that. I can. We understand. I know Eddie does. You're making sense. Okay, I just want to make sure that the way I'm putting this is making... Okay, good. Good. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. So, Hitler says you have the separate Frank's motion regarding the scope of the car search. Ann says absolutely. Hitler says, well, that we're not here for today. We're here for the IGG. And I get the idea that if the IGG is suppressed, the warrants based on IGG is suppressed. That affects a lot of other things, right? But I don't think that you need to get into the evidence of that at this point because it's part of the Franks. There's a separate Frank's motion on that. Ann says there absolutely is. The next question, I'm going to get to the affidavit after the IGG, was the police in Pullman running the car. And he has laid it out in the affidavit after the IGG without stating it. So I'm doing the IGG part with him now, and that car is a different year than the one the Bolo is for. That's as far as I'm going with the car at this hearing. And then the court, of course, Hitler looks at the counsel state and says, is that okay with you? Because, he has to keep them happy. Hushley says, I don't understand what that has to do with the IGG. It's part of a Frank's hearing related to the vehicle identification. I understand her timeline, but I think that point has already been made. And Ann says, this was when I was allowed to explore this witness since he's already here, and we've paid for him to come here. And Hitler says, yeah, but I didn't open up everything to Frank's because we couldn't get into all the other things that I understand. We could get into the entirety of Frank's on IGG, which is why I allowed it. So here again is him denying things that she needs to help to defend Brian, as he did through the whole thing. This was a closed hearing, Hemisphere, yes. And it's a transcript from it. That's why we're doing it now, because we didn't get to see any of this in the hearing. And I did go through this, but I never went through it in depth like this. So, and I think these things are important and point to certain things that could give us show us a reason why Brian had to take a plea at some point and why the defense had nothing. Okay. She had no way to go any further with anything because of things like this. So, and that's what we're going to stick to today, Hitler says. And says IGG flows. It makes everything. Hitler says, well, and it cuts her off, as always. I'm not suggesting that we get into other Frank's issues that sprung in part from IGG, because those are separate based, right? And so I think that we need to just talk about the specific IGG stuff today in terms of Frank's. There's not a separate motion to suppress based solely on that and not the IGG, if I'm not mistaken, apart from Frank's motions, and says to suppress, which I'm not following. I'm sorry. Yeah, why do you need to suppress it? But he says there are motions to suppress that are not Frank's related. She says, right. I'm not going there. He says that's evidence that we can put on today, but I thought we were going to do that at a later today. She says, absolutely. There are various Frank's motions, one of which is to suppress, or I'm sorry, she says, absolutely. My apologies. He says there are various Frank's motions, one of which is to suppress. One of the Frank's motions is that there was a Frank's violation by not informing the magistrate of the use of IGG in violations, as you allege them, in obtaining the IGG. That's the issue that we are doing today in terms of evidence, and I want to stick to that. So getting into the car, which is separate, which I understand your argument is the IGG, led them to expand the search of the cars. But that's not the Frank's issue itself. The Frank's issue itself on IGG is the IGG itself. And it's limited to that. And says, all right, and had to give up again because they shut her down. And they concluded their bench conference that they had. HIPAA goes back, says, I'm going to sustain the objection by Ms. Taylor. And goes back to the questions. All the things in the warrant that became particular to Brian Kohberger were not on your radar before you learned his identity through IGG. Is that correct? He says, yes, ma'am. And she says, and you elected not to put the IGG identification in your probable cause affidavit. Is that right? He says, yes, ma'am. So what led to that decision? And Payne says that decision was a collaborative decision that we made that decision in an effort to independently verify the information that was provided to us as a tip from the FBI. In much the same way we would any other tip in law enforcement. So it was not in any way meant to obfuscate any sort of information. It was simply, can we validate Mr. Kohberger's involvement in this incident, or can we not? That was it. And says, so as a group effort, you decided to intentionally leave that out of your affidavit. Yes, ma'am. And says, given the limitation at this point, I think that's all my questions. HIPAA says, all right. Cross-exam. Then Hushley gets up and says, good morning, detective. I only have one question for you. She says, let's go back to December 19th and December 20th and the information that was provided to the team, correct? It was a team, question mark. He says, yes, ma'am. Next question was, and who all was part of this team that was receiving this information telephonically from the FBI? He says, so there were several of us. Yourself, Mr. Thompson was there, Darren Gilbertson from the Idaho State Police, Ed Jacobson from the FBI, and I believe there was a couple other folks from the FBI and ISP in the room. I don't remember exactly, if that's convenient again, who they were, and then myself. There were numerous people that were involved. Would it have been essentially the team leaders for the investigation? He says yes. Was this different than any of the other information sharing that occurred during this case? Not at all. There were routine team discussions. Yes, ma'am. We had 2 official briefings each day of the investigation, morning and evening. So twice a day, we would all link up, and that was not just the command team. That was everyone who was not actively on an interview would come back to the police department, sit in the same room, and discuss the information that was learned from the day. So it was very common throughout this investigation for us all to be in the same room and discussing the same information. So you were not the only investigator receiving information from various sources. He says, absolutely not. So when we talk about this Exhibit A, that wasn't necessarily just your Exhibit A. No, ma'am. And you see what she's doing there? She's trying to draw the attention and take it away from him. It was not. It was all the information that the investigators had up to this point. Yes, ma'am. That is an accurate statement. Now, related to the IGG and the information that you were provided by the FBI and in the information provided, did you receive any medical information about Brian? No, ma'am, we did not. I don't have anything further. Thank you. And then Hitler says redirect. Yes, Your Honor, and wants to jump back up again. And this is her redirect examination. And goes to Ashley and says, she refers to Miss Jennings and says, was just talking to you about the team. I guess that got together a couple times a day from November 13th until December 19th or 20th. Is our target time right now? Yes, ma'am. So who from the FBI was part of those daily meetings? He says, like I said, Special Agent Jacobson was there. Maria Tyndall. I believe Special Agent Rob Hill was involved, and I'm trying to think of the other names. I don't remember any. There were others there, and I just don't remember who they were. I apologize. She says that's okay. How about who else from Moscow Police Department? So Captain Blaker was there. Interesting. He's there for everything. I believe usually Detective Vargas was there. Sometimes Chief Fry would sit in on those meetings, and most nights Chief Fry would sit in on those meetings. Captain Dollinger, Anthony Dollinger, was in those meetings from MPD. I'm trying to think of all the others. Basically, the whole command team from Moscow PD itself would be in those meetings. And then whoever else was available from the investigation section would also come in. So who from ISP was there? Darren Gilbertson was there, and I believe Detective Joe Lake was there most days, and I can't remember who else was consistently there. I remember those two for sure. Lieutenant Mike Mooney was in those meetings, and that was the three off the top of my head. So when was the first time that you talked about the ID of Brian Koberger in those meetings? And he says, as far as when we knew of him, she says, yeah. He said December 19th. He keeps going back to that date, which again is a lie. How many hours of meetings do you think that you had up until the identification of Brian Koberger? He says, goodness, many. I don't know. It was a lot. She says twice a day, every day. Yes, ma'am. 7 days a week, if not more than that. Yeah, Miss Taylor, thank you. That's it. More than 7 days a week, huh? Okay. So Hitler says, thank you, detective. You can step down. And then the defense says, can I call its next witness? Or he says defense can call its next witness. I'm going to take a break for like 30 seconds here, folks, and just catch my breath. There's a lot of reading. Let me check the chat and catch up with you guys over here real fast. How the hell did Hitler allow him to plead guilty then? Thank you. Thank you very much. Lucy says, make P. So if no FBI IGG work was reviewed, did Hitler decide in his order that the FBI did IGG not violate Koberger? Yeah. No factual decision was made. Special Agent Cummer Green. Let's see here. Law nerds. If the state never produced the IGG work for the defense to review, in this case, does that also mean that no actual decision was ever made in the history of this case? That's interesting, Lucy. Eddie says, during the briefings that they were all ensuring that they were getting the story of the investigation. Oh, yeah, 100%. I agree with that too. Yeah, guys, check out Mayhem and Miracles channel, please. It's a very inspirational channel. I promise you guys will be impressed. I am. SRB is. It's really, really good stuff. So go check it out. The link is there. Alicia says, I agree 100%. Lucy, I fall asleep rereading docs too, and yet people couldn't discern the main things knowing what we know now. It is very scary. I agree with you, Alicia. There's the link for Mayhem's channel, guys. Go check it out, please. All right. If I've missed anything in the chat, my deepest apologies. I will try to check up my best I can. If Brian himself was in that database as a consumer, they definitely violated his rights to not hand over the work. And that implies that he is on the list of names that were pre-produced. I'm sorry. Sorry, produced. I think Lucy said, yeah. Interesting, isn't it? All right, guys. Like I said, I'm going to take just a quick break here, grab something to drink, to refill, and I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that, you guys. After Hitler called Cy Ray's affidavit a conspiracy, I knew he wasn't going to allow the defense any late. I think most people kind of figured that as well. I wonder if Brian ever took a C19 test. Interesting. All right, but blood not being his own, Hitler ruled that he could not claim his privacy was violated. Same for the crime scene blood, then should be. If you go to pages I cited, it appears that he was just a consumer. He's smart and won't just ignore consent. They did backdoor ways based on this stuff. Oh, yeah, they used databases they weren't supposed to use, period. That's all there is to it. That we know. They used MyHeritage. That's not allowed at all. That's definitely scary. Cy Ray is a potential whistleblower, not a conspiracy theorist, in my opinion, and I agree with that. And it shows right there through what we've been already that Hitler was not going to be on board with anything they were going to do. He was not going to allow this to happen. He was not going to, in my opinion, allow this to go any further than it has. That was something I gathered at that point too. This shows even more of that, you guys, in the closed hearings. I bet one whole leg that he's in the good match and opted out, or he used MyHeritage also. Heavily leaning to MyHeritage based on the Prometheus line of questioning that Anne asks. Yes. Context is key. Very good point. Okay, so they're swearing in Ryland Nowlin. Okay, this is where this starts to get interesting with these experts, okay? Direct examination from Miss Taylor. Lord, I wish I had somebody else up here with me. Will you please state your name? Blah, blah, blah. Ryland Nowlin, we know that. Says, I think you've done this before. She says a few times. And how are you employed? I am employed as a forensic laboratory manager with ISP Forensic Services Laboratory in Meridian, Idaho. And how long have you worked for ISP? I've worked for Idaho State Police Forensic Services since November of 2002. Okay. So did you have prior experiences similar? Prior to my employment with ISP, I did not. How were you trained for your job? She says, I have formal education. I was originally hired as a forensic scientist in the biology DNA unit. As such, I was required to have a degree in biology, biochemistry, or similar. I was required to have coursework in genetics, molecular biology, biochemistry, and statistics. And then I completed the Idaho State Police Forensic Services specialized training program in biology screening, as well as in DNA analysis, as well as in DNA database analysis. And then I've completed hundreds of hours of continuing education over my years. And 1 second, sorry. Sorry, you guys. I got to grab something for my wife real fast. All right. Sorry about that. These things happen from time to time. Give me 1 second to get myself set back up. Okay. Sorry, you guys. Where was I? Okay, and it asked, were you a member of any professional organizations? Yes, ma'am. Which ones? I'm a member of the Northwest Association of Forensic Scientists, American Association of Forensic Sciences, and the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors. Oh, what the hell? Hold on a minute. I'm getting messages sent to me left and right. 1 second. Okay. Sorry. Are you a part of the collaborative? Yes, I am a member of the National Technology and Validation Implementation Collaborative. What is that one about? That is a group of comprised of laboratory management. Typically, it depends on which portion or section, a subsection of the collaborative that have gathered together to generate ideas for best practices and guidelines for new technologies coming into forensics. Would investigative genetic genealogy be a new technology coming into forensics? That is one of the technologies. However, our group refers to it as FIG, Forensic Investigative Genetic Genealogy. FIG. Okay. I'll try to remember that. That's the one I want to talk about. So your group is talking about best practices for FIG. Is that right? She says that's one of our areas of focus. Correct. Are you doing that because there are practices that are important in that discipline? We're doing that because it's a new technology coming into the forensics world, and not every laboratory manager has a background in DNA. We also have a group on firearms because not every laboratory manager has a background in firearms, and it's just a resource for those managers as they're looking to implement new technologies. You mentioned best practices. Does that have anything to do with things that I might refer to as standards or procedures or protocols? No. What does best practices mean? Well, best practice is a recommendation based on the current knowledge in the field. There are organizations that come up with standards for different fields, but this group, that is not their purpose. Ann says, in your lab, do you have standards and procedures and protocols? She says, our laboratory does have, we call them analytical methods, as well as our quality system. All right, Joanna Bell, thank you so much. We'll be here at least for a while longer. Thank you so much for being here. If we don't see you, welcome anybody else that has jumped in. I appreciate you guys. This is very interesting material, and I'm grateful that you guys are here for it. Very much so. Oh, 1 second here. What just happened here? Sorry. Okay, there we go. Oh, okay. Welcome, Hemisphere. How are you today, brother?
I'm all right.
There we go. I can't
Hold
see.
on just a second.
Can't see your thing, but I can hear you. That's all that matters. Welcome, Emma. Thank you for joining us. Let me see if I'm missing anybody.
Yeah, I don't know if any background noise. Let me see.
No, you sound all right. You're good.
There we go.
Yep, you're good to go.
For
right.
some reason, I can't get my camera to work. Camera.
No problem. As long as we can hear you, that's all that matters.
Okay.
All righty. So let's see. Let me see what that means. What's
So-
that mean? Go ahead.
I just got a few thoughts. And I mentioned Syray, which was a big deal. I think that kind of blew the wind out of her sails a little bit because she was really, really leaning on that as her little ace of spades. But after Kipler did what he did to that, I remember that one time she kind of got upset at Hitler. She basically told him, I have gone to great lengths to defend my client. I don't have to do that.
Right.
I can just sit at my desk and let prosecution present their case to convict Brian Coburn. But I did what I did because I believe in his innocence. Folks, she was backed in the corner. She did not have nowhere to go. All the avenues that she had, Hitler was not letting it in at all.
No, and what Eddie just said is absolute. Yes, that if Hitler knew, if they would have allowed Ray's stuff to come out, it would have completely and totally destroyed the state's argument. I agree with that. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. And they would have had to throw this case out, which is not part of the narrative. That's the reason why Hitler was part of the narrative. He did not want the case. We all know that. His actions and his body language even told us he didn't want to be there because he already knew he was just there to make sure that it was ran on a tight schedule that he already laid out. There was no, he was not going to give up on that. He was not going to bend or anything. This was going to go to trial if it was going to go to trial.
Thank you, Mayhem.
And it was not going to go to trial because we're reading it now. Ann Taylor has been calling it out way from the beginning that they don't have anything against her client. Why they didn't throw it out? But my biggest question is, Dago, who was the biggest shark in the pond for them to protect?
I think that's everybody's question at this point, Hemisphere, truly.
Because I have no doubt in my mind, if we ever find that out, then we're going to know exactly who it really was.
Good point.
I mean, it's sad, and I think Tommy, I heard Tommy say something about the Innocent Project is looking to take over the case, but this case is going to have to go up to the Supreme Court, and it's going to have to get, if it does go back down to the state level, it's going to have to be presented with a new judge. You can't bring Hitler back for this.
They need to get this out of this court system, period. It needs to get out of this court system. He's never going to go anywhere here. I agree with that.
It won't, because there's too much inconsistencies. I've always said that at the end of the day, there's always, with every case, there's always that Now we know they really got their guy. This right here, no. And I can't help it, but I kind of get a little upset when I'm seeing that same old narrative that everybody's trying to push. Well, he stood up and he pleaded guilty. I had said myself, okay, if he's going to plead guilty, then I need to know a confession after that. And we didn't get that. Not from him.
No, he did not make a confession whatsoever.
So, I mean, if he's guilty, I'm like you, Dago. Show me proof that he did it. And how he did it.
It's that simple. That's it. Yes.
But to say that the narrative from Kelly's parents is still trying to push that narrative that they was asleep. They was not asleep, guys. No way they was asleep.
No, in Sunshine, that's the only way they could get death penalty off the table. I feel at this point, and I've said this 1,000 times now because it's truly what I believe. They didn't trust in the jury. They didn't trust in the judge. They didn't trust in the court, period, to do this the right way. And if they didn't do what they did, then the death penalty would erode. I think that people were worried that they were going to try to fast track the death penalty at that point too. That had to be done no matter what. First and foremost is to get rid of that death penalty. This is the only way to do it. That's exactly why I think they did it.
I agree 100%. Now I understand why he took a plea deal, because he was in a lose-lose situation. Lose-lose.
Yeah, they weren't going to get anything.
Now I'm hearing he could stay up to about 2 years. And we probably won't never know anything for the next 2 years if he hasn't done it already, which the time has already passed and gone. I think today was the day. So, but yeah, I mean, I'd like to know. I'd like to know exactly what the hell happened, because this don't even make sense. And I bring back the Banfield, not my prayer. Bring back the Banfield. Tisdale Rosie was the white launcher or the white car that was circling the neighborhood that night. And they saw the DoorDash driver, and they also saw several people in front of the residence.
Right.
Several. They could be 3, 4, they could be 5. But he wasn't there for that. He was there for open containers and people walking around drunk or whatever.
Yeah.
That was his reason for leaving it alone. Guys, he just witnessed the people that was involved in the murders, and he drove off, not knowing that this is what was going on.
Right. Good point.
So what I'm saying to you is his statements earlier in this transcript is, you cannot tell me the head investigator of this crime did not know they had an undercover unit circling that neighborhood that night. He knew full and well. He knew it. I can't believe he's that absent-minded not to know that. He had to know. So whenever they found Kohlberger, this is just my opinion, and what I got out of it. When they found out that white Lantra belonged to Koberger. Then they knew, oh, we can pin that on him because they can't prove otherwise. That's how they got to Koberger.
The problem I have with that, though, is like I explained to you guys a little bit ago. They know that that car is not Brian's car, period. He reenacted that himself. Payne did. He ran it under the lights to see what color it looks. It shows up as a tan vehicle that supposedly, quote unquote, Molly saw. We saw the video of that car making loops about in that area the whole time, and they're claiming that that's Brian's car. We know it's not. He knows it's not, and he still answers at this point that is. They let this narrative run through and through and through and through until they got him.
I would say, in my opinion, we're probably looking at maybe 4 people. And not only that, let's not forget the DNA that they found underneath Maddie's fingernail was a female DNA and a little bit of DNA from a male.
Where'd that come from? I've never heard that one before. About the female DNA. I've heard that there was a mixture with male DNAs. If there was female, I didn't know that.
It has to be in one of those docs I heard.
Okay.
Dang, I wish I can
That's
come
okay.
up.
Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. No big deal.
I just go from, I'm hearing all kinds of stuff from the docs. That's what they found. It kind of makes sense because, and I go back to this. And this is the reason why I keep going back to that, because it's all covered up. When you got the coroner coming in and making a statement from the very beginning, they go, this was recorded.
Right.
A video recording of that coroner saying that the narrative that they are saying that happened did not happen the way the cops say it happened in the affidavit. A K-bar knife does not fit the wounds on the victims. She said that. There was multiple weapons being used. But after that, they cut her off. Because she let the cat out of the bag. She done told everybody on that. Now it's all damage control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like Lucy just said, they absolutely knew that he wasn't at that house. He went to Moscow, but he wasn't over there. But they put it in there to make it seem like something. It's not 100%. And anytime that they have him, like Sarge has always called it, the stalking bullshit and all that other stuff. You can't stalk somebody at 40 miles an hour. The car, anytime they track or they clock that car in that area, it's him driving through that area to get into Moscow. Because again, I've said this 1,000 times too. There's nothing in Pullman for him to go to. All the stuff that he needed, he went into Moscow and out through Moscow and out different places, just like anybody else did. All 1,300 other people that drove through that area, or however many it was. That's all it was. It's never him at that house. It's insane that they allowed for that to keep going.
I would not buy that narrative about his phone getting turned off at particular times. And then when he came out and he said he was at a park.
I don't believe that ever happened either.
Well, if he was at a park and he's out in the middle of nowhere and they don't have cell coverage out there, well, guess what? If you ain't got service out there somewhere, your service is turned off because you ain't got nothing out there to give it to you. You see what I'm saying?
He didn't even hit on the towers that he was supposed to either. That was another whole thing.
Yeah. Which I think it was like maybe 3 towers or something they said, or 2-3 towers. One of them was a big one that put service out to both Moscow and Washington. Anyway.
No, the whole thing, none of it fits the way it's supposed to, period.
It don't. And
regarding the K-bar that is sold, set 1217 USMP, that is the same 1220, 1225 Army stamp sheath, Navy stamp sheath, remains the same, only the sheath differs. Thank you. Okay, hold on. Let me set something here. Anything else in relation to what we have touched on already, Hemisphere, at all?
No, you're good. I just thought I'd get that off my chest.
No, it's okay. That's what it's all about. Open discussion is open discussion. I'm glad that at least he wanted to go back to this, because I didn't really get to like go into this in depth when I wanted to, because we had a lot of other stuff going on, things like that. And I think it's important for people to understand how this all happened, how this all went down in the closed hearings and stuff like that, and what was actually brought about. It's a lot. So and I was trying to look at something real quick here. Lucy likes to throw out page numbers, and I'm trying to see. 1 second here. I'll back up to where we are. This is going to take a while to get through, but okay, I see why. Makes sense now. Back up here. Sorry. All right, now, and if there's anything that you want me, Alicia, or anybody else, to skip ahead to, or just keep going where I'm going, let me know. Sorry.
Hey, just keep doing what you're doing. It's fine.
All right, let me get back to where I was. Again, this is we're on to Ryland Nowlin now. 1 second here. Sorry, you guys. I'm nosy. I can't help myself. Good God, where was I? Right here. Come on.
While you looking for that, there's something that got on my mind. As far as SG goes, in that little interview he had with
Right. Good Lord. Hold
so
on. Go ahead.
so you're saying how Bill Thompson is the most, how much you really he hates Bill Thompson. If he lied to you all this time about your daughters and everything else about this case, but yet you steady pushing the narrative on Brian Kohlberger, do you not realize that he may be lying to you about that too?
Yeah.
Does this man sit there in front of open court before the sentence, and they was all there?
Hey, Christy.
We do not have anything on Kohlberger to link him to the victims, the house. We can't even put him in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And Hitler went ahead and accepted the plea. He could have denied that plea right then and there.
He should have. If he was doing things the way he should be as a judge, yeah, he should have, but he didn't. Which is why one of the main reasons why I've been claiming that it almost looks to me that he was working with the prosecution in this, in my opinion.
And I agree. And I'm on the same page with you too on that, because I believe he was there to uphold that narrative.
Uh-huh. Yes, sir.
In all his actions and all his rulings, everything that he done has not said otherwise.
That's right. That is
Yeah,
absolutely truth. All right, guys. So you mentioned best practices. Does that have anything to do with the things that I might refer to as standards, procedures, protocols? She says no. What does best practices mean? Well, best practice is a recommendation based on the current knowledge in the field. There are organizations that come up with standards for different fields, but this group, that is not their purpose. So in your lab, do you have standards and procedures, protocols? Our laboratory does. We call them analytical methods. This is about where I left off. Analytical methods, as well as our quality system. Analytical methods and quality systems means the same thing as procedures and protocols. Yes. So what does that mean to you? Well, what it means to me is our laboratory is an accredited laboratory. So we have a set of accreditation standards that we must meet. So in order to do that, we have set quality policies as well as the analytical methods for each discipline. That ensures that we are consistently performing our scientific analysis in ways that have been validated and shown to be proper for the testing that's being conducted. And it also shows that we are meeting the national standards by which we are accredited. In addition, DNA has additional standards that they must meet called the FBI's quality assurance standards for forensic casework laboratories, as well as for forensic databasing laboratories. And says, I want to start with the first part of it you mentioned. I think that's their standards and protocols, my definition of them. That helps assure that your work so that somebody could look and see what you did and maybe get the same result or understand what you did. Do I understand that right? She says, yes, it's the methods that we follow. Yes, that would be one application, someone could look and see what they did. And says again, so now you mentioned at the very end of what you told me before that DNA has something separate, correct? Or she says correct. And Ann says, so what do you mean? Ryland says, because our laboratory is a participant in the National DNA Index System, it's commonly referred to as CODIS, which stands for Combined DNA Index System. We are subject to additional standards set forth by the FBI because they manage that database. Well, what are those standards? Those standards are known as the QAS standards. They cover everything from when I listed the classes I had at the beginning. They decide what classes a DNA analyst coming in should have, what education a DNA technical leader should have, and what things need to be included in a validation study, how facilities need to be controlled, and it covers the gamut of testing. Validation study. What does that mean? Whenever a new chemistry, a new instrument, a new procedure is coming online in the laboratory, we perform a study to ensure that that chemistry, instrument, or procedure is working or receiving the expected results. Okay. And to be sure that you have to do that because you use CODIS, our DNA section has to do that because we use CODIS. The rest of the laboratory, because of part of our accreditation standards. And says, well, you tell me what CODIS is briefly. CODIS is Combined DNA Index System, is essentially a national DNA database. It exists on 3 levels. There's a local level, your county sheriff's office, local PDs. There's a state level, which is typically the state laboratory. It is limited to public laboratories. And then the national level. In Idaho, the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Lab in Meridian is the only DNA lab in the state. So there are no local labs in the state of Idaho, and the database contains different indices. Indices. I don't know what the hell that word is. I've never seen that before, but there's a forensic index. Maybe it meant indexes. Those are profiles obtained from items of evidence. There's an offender index. Yeah, it meant indexes. They misspelled it. So those are samples from the convicted of qualifying offenses in your state as determined by your state legislature. If your state legislature allows arrestees, there's an arrestee index. There's also a missing persons index and 4 remains. So Ann says then, do you have any special role with the CODIS database? She says, currently I'm a CODIS user. That is my only role at the moment. What was your role in the fall of November of 22? She says CODIS user. Do you have any administrative responsibilities with CODIS? Not currently. Have you in the past? In the past, I have served as the alternate state administrator for Idaho. Ann says for CODIS DNA that goes into CODIS, or for CODIS or DNA that goes into CODIS, what kind of profiles is used? Ryland says, if I'm understanding the question correctly, there's different types of DNA profiles, and what goes into CODIS is known as STR profile or short tandem repeat. Ann says, what kind of information is in a short tandem repeat or STR? Ryland says, can I give a brief explanation about DNA? Sure. So DNA is a substance that's found in the cells of our body, and it acts as a blueprint. It tells our bodies what form to take and how to function. Between individuals, it is over 99% the same. That is why we all have the same basic structure, and our bodies function in basically the same way. In forensics and STRs, we are targeting that less than 1% that is unique to an individual, with the exception of identical twins. And so areas of DNA that vary widely between individuals don't code for anything typically. So it doesn't tell us anything about a person. When I look at the STR profile, I can tell you if that person is genetically male or genetically female. And that is all. Do you know what an SNP profile is? I do. And what is that? An SNP profile is a single nucleotide polymorphism. So you're looking at a single nucleotide, whereas the STR is a series of repeating nucleotides. A specific repeat that we're looking for. The SNP then is that a closer look at a person's genome. She says, I would like to state that I'm not an expert in SNPs. I'm not qualified in the SNP technology and have not ever been qualified in the SNP technology with STRs. Depending on the chemistry, you're looking at anywhere from 13 to 25 plus locations. And with SNPs, my understanding is in general that you're looking at a minimum of 10,000. So Ann says, does that mean that there's more information about a human contained in an SNP than there is an STR profile? Mr. Nye speaks up and says, Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. This witness is not disclosed as an expert, and she just testified she's not an expert in SNP technology. Okay, and if that's the point, folks, then why the hell is she sitting on the bench right now? If she's not an actual, a full expert, she shouldn't be sitting there, in my opinion. Hippler says, I appreciate that with respect to her answer, and I will take that into account in the event that the defense intends to rely on that testimony. I took it as a sort of background about her general knowledge, and I'll allow it for now. I'm not taking it as expert testimony about that SNP beyond the basic understanding of what SNP is. Ann says, thank you. And then says, do you remember my question? And she says, yes. And I would assume if you're looking at a larger part of the human genome, that you would be getting a larger amount of information about someone. Ann says, I have one more question about CODIS, and then I want to move in a different area. You mentioned that there's 4 indexes that you talked about, a forensic index. Ryland says, correct. And Ann says, so what is one used for? What is that one used for? I'm sorry. The forensic index is where profiles generated from items of evidence can be uploaded. There are rules about what can be uploaded, though it cannot match someone known to be the victim of a crime. It cannot match someone whose DNA should be in a place outside of a crime being committed, and it cannot be anything taken directly from a suspect of a crime, where you would reasonably assume that their DNA could be present. It must be related to a crime, and it must be believed to be from the putative perpetrator of the crime. So if I understand it, you use DNA, get an STR, and only under certain circumstances can you use CODIS. Do I understand that right? She says correct. Okay, so outside of CODIS, and I understand what that does. If you create a profile, a DNA profile of somebody, is that a separate thing that you do in your lab, even if you're not going to run them through CODIS? Ryland says yes. When we receive items of evidence or samples from known individuals, we generate a DNA profile from those. And says, did you become involved in the homicide in Moscow from 22? Ryland says, involved as the manager of the laboratory in Meridian. I haven't actually done any work on any evidence in the case or issued any reports. She says, oh, all right. So is it fair to say that you did not go to that residence then? Ryland says, yep, or correct. I'm sorry. And says, so as a lab manager, do you understand about what evidence has come into the lab from that case? Ryland says, there was a lot of evidence submitted. I have a general knowledge of items that kept come in, but I could not provide you a detailed list of off the top of my head. And says, that's okay. I won't ask you to. Interesting. And she says, thank you. And says, as a lab manager, are you aware of different bits of testing that were done related to this case? And says, in general, yeah. I'm sorry, Ryland says, in general, yes. And Ann says, are you aware of a profile called Unknown Male A? She says, yes. Where did that come from? She says, to my recollection, Unknown Male A came from a swab taken from a knife sheath that was submitted to Moscow PD. Ann says, are you aware of Unknown Male B? Ryland says, I believe that was another sample from hearing the previous testimony that was from in the house. Ann says, I would only want you to testify from your own base of knowledge. Ryland says, well, from my own memory, I don't recall exactly where B was from. Ann says, fair enough. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Are you aware that investigative genetic genealogy or forensic investigative genetic genealogy was used in this case? Ryland says, yes. And Ann says, what was your role in that? My role specific to this case was facilitating the signing of a memorandum of understanding, making sure all parties received it and had signed it. Those parties being the police agency, the prosecuting attorney's office, as well as a member of ISP's management team. And then when the preliminary report was received, my job was to look over it, ensure that it had all the required pieces in the report, and then to authorize payment of the invoice for that testing. So what role did you have with the laboratory that was going to perform the FIG work as far as how we came to be in contact with them? So when ISP decided to pursue a contract with the laboratory that could perform the SNP testing, what we talked about earlier, we're a state agency, so we don't just get to call up anybody and hire them. So we had to go through a bid process. So part of my role was developing the scope of work for that invitation to bid, as in what we expected the vendor to perform. And then when the bids came in, I was involved in the team that evaluated the documents that were submitted. And then ultimately the division of purchasing determined who won the bid. Did Idaho State Police Forensics have a contract with this laboratory, Othram? Ryland says they were the winning bid through that process. So they were under contract with the Department of Purchasing. Correct? Or correct. Sorry about that. And says, is the contract with the Department of Purchasing that you perform these services and we pay you for them essentially? Or does it have to be more meat to it to talk about some of the things that you were talking about? How have you helped develop, I guess, the job description and what would be required? I'm not familiar with Department of Purchasing's day-to-day operations or how they operate. My role is strictly developing that scope of work. We expect them to develop the profiles that can be uploaded to the public genealogy databases. We expect them to provide us a written report. We expect the report to contain certain things, to have a header, and to have a date. To list the case number, to have page numbers, those kinds of things. And Ann says, outside that description of the scope of work and the requirements, did your lab have a separate contract with Othram that basically said that you agree to do these things? Ann said, she says, we had that. They won the bid from Division of Purchasing, and that's the state contract for performing that work. Ann says, you mentioned a memorandum of understanding. You helped facilitate to be signed for the parties. Was Othram one of the parties that signed that? She says, no. This is a memorandum between the law enforcement agencies, the prosecuting attorney's office, and the laboratory. And in that memorandum of understanding that indicated that the the Department of Justice interim policy applied. Is that right? Ryland says, I believe it did, and I don't have the exact text memorized. Well, if I showed you a copy of that memorandum of understanding, would that help you to remember if that was part of it? She said yes. And then Anne says, Your Honor, if I have just a moment to gather that, if I can have just a moment to gather that, it's not being offered as an exhibit. And Hitler says, just refreshing. Anne says, it's to aid in her memory. Court says, Hitler says, show it to the State's Counsel. And then Miss Anne says, does looking at that refresh your memory as to whether the Department of Justice interim policy applied? Ryland says it does say in the first paragraph that it did apply. Anne says, and Your Honor, I'm going to refer to Defense Exhibit D19 here and ask the witness be shown that, and then I'll provide the court my copy. And Hitler says, when was this filed? And that would have been filed with the amended Franks memorandum on the bottom of that page. I'm sorry. Hitler says, I've got thousands of filings. I have to go by date and find things. And again, says, I think it was November 18th or 20th at the bottom of that page. However, you can see some numbers in red, and those were numbered to make it easier to find. Hitler, I just need to find it in my computer first. All right, I found it in my printed documents. And says, is that the Department of Justice interim policy? Ryland says, yes, the Department of Justice interim policy on forensic genetic genealogy, DNA analysis, and searching. And again, and in section 7, I believe it's section 7 or page 7, she says investigative caution. That section is a question. Anne says, let me ask you the question. Are you familiar with the provision in that policy that says if there's a prosecution case, if somebody is arrested and there's a prosecution case, all items in the forensic investigative genetic genealogy should be preserved for court purposes? Ryland says, I believe that is part of, I don't think it's in section 7. It might be, but I believe that is part of preserving. Okay, well, what I want to know is, what did Othram preserve? She says, I don't know. Anne says, well, what did you get back? And Ryland says, we received a preliminary report. In other cases, we will sometimes get back the DNA extract that was sent to them. I don't recall if we got that back in this case. And anything our laboratory receives, we return to the submitting agency. And Anne says, so would validation be part of that? Validation studies? I wouldn't assume so. I wouldn't assume that would be part of this. No. Well, would bench notes be important? And here comes Hitler. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What notes? Anne says bench notes, lab bench notes. And Hitler says, thank you. Ryland says, for our laboratory, we designate those as part of our case record. And I'm not familiar with what Othram designates as part of their case record. So I guess then that means that you don't have any of those. She says, no, only the preliminary report. And says, all right, I will move to a different area of questioning. And it's about the requirements with Othram. You mentioned that the goal was to create profiles and create a report, but to search public databases. That's correct. There are public genealogy databases that will allow entry of law enforcement samples. And that is part of the scope of work. They were required to enter it into those databases. So, and are you aware there are databases that do not allow law enforcement to search? She said yes. Were you part of work after Othram began their work to try and do an investigation? She says, I was not. As far as, I guess I'm unclear. Interesting. We received evidence submitted to the laboratory before, during, and after all sections. Is that what you're referring to? Well, let me rephrase my question. I think that my question was too broad. While Othram was doing their work, were you part of any work to help Othram? For instance, did you get any documents that you did some research on to try to help Othram? No. Were you aware that Othram was just stopped from doing any further work at some point? She says, I was aware of that. And was this before they produced any result? No. We received a preliminary report. I recall receiving that because that's how I know I can approve payment of the invoice. So I know that we received that prior to them being told they were stopped. So at that point, folks, is where it comes into effect that they stopped looking. Okay. That's where they stopped looking. They got Brian's name and they were done. End of story. That's a problem, folks. That's a huge problem. Hey, Christy, thank you for joining us. Again, guys, I'm not ignoring the chat. It's just hard to look and read at the same time. I appreciate you guys all being here, and I will definitely try to catch up with you guys and any things I'm missing. By the way, Tomboy or Bomb Toy, you're so welcome to join me up here if you want to join me to read, by the way. Just so you know. Sorry. So, were you part of the decision to stop them? She said, I was not. And how did you find out about it? Well, I found out about it in an email from my laboratory system director. Do you remember when that happened? Of course, I don't recall. Does the forensic lab continue to contract with Othram? Yes. If Othram had a file that would have had validation studies and bench notes, anything that they did on the case, who would have received that? Again, validation studies would be odd to associate with individual cases, so I wouldn't. I wouldn't assume that they would do that. And again, I'm not familiar with their procedures. And as far as who would receive documents, usually it would be. I would assume the agency which received that preliminary report. You mentioned that you're not familiar with their procedures. Not in detail, no. What procedures are you familiar with then? For Othram, yes. Well, as part of the bid process, all of the bidders were required to submit, and I believe that they were required to submit their procedures, and it was essentially just looking over them to say, yeah, they have a procedure in place for extracting DNA. Yes. They have a procedure in place for doing SMPs. So, yes, they meet the minimums for the invitation to bid. But again, I'm not qualified in that technology, so I wouldn't have studied them or rendered an opinion on them. I won't ask for your opinion on them. I won't ask you to quote them to me, but you saw those? She said yes at the very beginning of the bid process. All right, let's switch gears. In the case that we are here for today, do you recall there being a trash pool? Court reporter says, I'm sorry, there being a what? She says, a trash pool. Witness says, I recall receiving evidence from a trash pool, correct. Ann says, what role did you have in deciding anything about that trash pool? She says, nothing about the trash pool occurring. I do recall there being a brief. I can't remember if it was a phone meeting or a video meeting, and just being asked in general, what items from someone's trash are good for DNA? Did you give any advice on that? I don't know if it was me specifically or another member of our DNA unit, but we did offer suggestions on items that are good for DNA. Did you receive items to test? She said yes. What instructions were you given about those items? The discussion was a person of interest. It had been developed and to analyze the items from the trash to determine if they could be inclusive of the DNA profile that was developed from the knife sheath unknown male A. What date was that you received the trash? She said the trash was received into the laboratory on December 28th of 22. So you were looking for a male profile, correct? She says correct. Ann says, all right, did you find male profiles? She says, I didn't perform the actual testing, but yes, there were male profiles developed. There's an S on that, by the way, okay? How many? I don't know. Do you know anything about either male profile or any of them? She said, I believe one of the male profiles designated as E was determined that they could be a biological parent or child of the profile from the knife sheath. And are you aware that Brian Koberger's DNA was in the trash? She said, I was not aware. Did you become aware? I became aware later, and we didn't have his name at that time. You didn't know his name on December 28th? She said, no, I didn't. Okay. Well, were you on December 28th, or were you aware that not male E, but another male profile had been identified? She says from, and Ann says the trash. She says the trash pool. I knew that there were some mixtures of DNA that were also included. And Ann says, one of the mixtures, did it have a male DNA profile? She said, I believe it did. And wasn't that profile the major component of that profile with a minor female? She says, I believe that sounds correct. That's quite interesting there, isn't it there? A minor female. And later, didn't that return to Brian Koberger? She says, well, we actually did not perform that comparison. Well, did you and I have a discussion a few days ago? She said, we did. And did you tell me that you knew that to be Brian Koberger's DNA? She says, I said I thought that was, and I could not find the report where we had done that comparison. I've since looked through, and we did not make that comparison. So I cannot say that he was included in that mixture. Our laboratory did not do that comparison. But a DNA profile was made for that mixture. Is that right? Yes. And there's a minor female and a major male. That is my understanding. And you could be by eye, or you could by eye look at that and tell that it's Brian's Koberger's, couldn't you? If you wanted to. She said, if I wanted to, I could probably look at. I did not. Okay. Well, you could still do it today if you wanted to. She said, if there was a request to do the comparison again, we don't do a visual comparison, evidence to evidence. Our procedures don't allow us to do that for probative comparisons. And Ann says, I need you to help me understand that a little bit. I'm having that question because I understand that there was an unknown male B found on lab item number 3. Do you know what I'm talking about? She said, no. Okay, well, I also understand that there was a cigarette butt taken from somebody in connection with the case investigation. Are you familiar with that? I am familiar with that. And that was compared to the DNA on the knife sheath. Is that right? She said yes. And that was found to be excludable. Am I using that word right? It was an exclusion, correct. So you compared something that was taken from somebody to an item of evidence, and is that right? Something that was a secondary reference, and someone identified it as they saw that person using that item. They saw that person dispose of that item. That item was collected and used as a reference sample from that person because there was someone who said it was from that person. Okay, when you got the trash to go through in the lab, you knew that you were looking for a male, right? She said, correct. And you knew that the male and his family members lived in a house that produced that bag of trash. Is that right? She said, yes, but not who produced each individual item in that trash bowl. Oh, okay. It wasn't labeled. This water bottle is from person of interest, and this tissue is from a sibling. This Q-tips from a parent. We didn't have that information. It was just, here's some items from the trash bowl. And one of those items you took, wait a minute, and developmental E? She said, I did not, but yes, the laboratory did. So in general, the lab developed male E, correct? And she said, correct, I'm sorry. And then Ann says again, in compared male A and male E, there was a paternity statistic, is what the answer was. Calculated because they were both single source profiles, meaning only one from one individual. Oh, okay. And there's another male profile? Answer was, that was part of a mixture to my knowledge, meaning more than one person's DNA present on that item. So again, only one male though. Is that right? Answer was, so when there's a mixture on an item of evidence, I don't know if you want me to explain this process. The first step is determining number of contributors to that mixture. Then our laboratory utilizes a software program to help break out the components of that mixture. So when one individual is male, it's not always possible to say the gender of the second person. Males have an X and a Y chromosome. Females only have X. So if there's an X and a Y present, it could be one male. It could be two males. It could be male and female without comparing to known reference samples, I can't say that. And I haven't seen the profile to my knowledge. Okay. Did you tell me, though, on that sample, and I'm talking about 95.9.1, that was a male and a female? Answer was, I believe that. I don't know if it was designated as that in the laboratory report. To my knowledge, it was. I can't remember what the report said. Again, that's convenient. I didn't generate the report and didn't do the work, so I'm not familiar with it as if it was my own work. She says, okay, so male B was also a mixture, wasn't it? She says, I don't know. Okay. If it was designated as unknown male B, again, I don't know if it was from a mixed sample or not. Anne says, Your Honor, if I may have just a moment, thank you for that. So she comes back and says, so just a couple other questions for you. As it relates to male E, it was compared to the sheath. Is that right? Ryland says that's correct. A paternity comparison. Anne says male E profile was compared to a lot of other evidence items in the case, wasn't it? She says correct. And you are allowed to do a manual interpretation per your policy, right? If there is, so it's not black and white. So if it is a simple source and we can look at it and say that that person is excluded, they are not the source of the DNA, then yes, that can be done manual. And by manual, I mean a person looking at it. If it is a probative comparison, and how we define a probative comparison is if it's saying something about who could be the source of the DNA on an item of the evidence that's relevant to the case, then no, we do not do a manual comparison. Hold on one second, folks. I need to use the little boys' room. I'll be right back. Please excuse me.
All right, so to pick up where he left off at, let's go up top. Something about who could be the source of DNA on an item of the evidence that's relevant to the case, then no. We do not do manual comparison and issues a statement about that because all of our state standards we had to issue a statistic so that the trier of fact has something to gauge how unique that could be. What is the likelihood that DNA could be from someone else? We provide that statistic, and we don't just say it matches. That requires a statistical calculation of what we. I'm having. I'm sorry, I'm having issues with this word. Probabilistic genotyping software to do. Hmm. What do y'all think about all of this in the chat? What do y'all think? I don't know what to make of it. So if they was to put your DNA in uh, in the system to see if you got any felonies or anything, and they can't, and your name does not pop up, how can they go about finding out if it was put a name with that DNA? See, what if the dad's DNA was not in the system as far as checking to see if he has a record or not? If he has a clean record,
All right, sorry, you guys. I had to wait for
it's,
my son to get out of the bathroom before I could use it. So anyway,
I already read everything that you got there. I'm just going in chat and asking them what they thought about it. But this was touch DNA, so they had the skin cells that was
uh-huh,
trapped in the
right.
butt seat.
That is
My understanding from touch DNA is it's like no different from picking up a piece of paper and writing something down on it and handing it to somebody. Well, your DNA just
transfer. Yeah.
transferred to him, and then his DNA got on the paper, and then you know, next thing you know, you got a bunch of people's DNA.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
not.
like, okay, for instance, yeah, if I let's say for instance I have this pen, okay, and I hand this pen to you, and you take the pen and you go to use it, there in turn that I just transferred my DNA to you. You see what I'm saying? Or that DNA to you, or say, which has happened before too. Say, for instance, Lucy had this pen and she gave it to me first, okay, and then I take it, depending on how I grabbed it or whatever you want to call it. Then I give it to you. I very well could transfer Lucy's DNA to you as well. You see what I'm saying? That's how transfer DNA works.
Because I remember back in the day when this all came out, the the big topic of discussion was how did Brian Koberger's DNA got on the button of the night sheet? Did he lend it out to somebody, or he was part of the crime? He was there to do the deed, and
I
just
I don't. It's never really been like exacted. But my question is, or my well, hold on. Let me read this real fast, and then I'll go to you what my thoughts are on that. She said that also YSTR basically takes many generations to change, and when it does change, it's only very slightly. Brian and his father and his grandfather, and if BK had a son, would all have nearly shoot. Where'd the rest of it go, Lucy? Identical YSTR. Thank you. This comparison to the PA trash is absolutely not IgG. Fig was already done. Thank you, Lucy. So, all right, back to what you said. Repeat that one more time.
no, it's like touch DNA. So it's like trying to figure out how
Oh,
did
how it would
Brent
have happened.
Koberger's DNA got on there, because it's like if
Let
he
me go
did,
there. Yeah, let me tell you what my thought was, because I everybody swears up and down Brian Koberger bought this damn sheath and this knife and all that shit. Okay, great. Let's say he did. Um, and so he's traveling across country. in his vehicle by himself, going to a whole other state, an area he's not used to. Maybe he took it with him. If he did buy it, quote unquote, if he did buy it, there's no proof of that yet. There's never been a receipt that I've seen, but okay. So say he did, and he bought the damn thing, and he took it with him for his own protection as he was driving across the country to a new place, okay? Doesn't know anybody in this place, doesn't know anything. It was bought for protection purposes. My thought on that is it's a new area. He lives in an apartment complex with a lot of other people. He may have met somebody or not, or somebody that he ran into. It seems like he was very, how can I put this? Interested in making friends because he's not used to that. And so anybody that would talk to him, he probably talked to on a regular basis. Maybe he gave somebody a ride. Maybe he, something, you know what I mean? Maybe he was trying to make a friend. Somebody saw it in his car or saw it one time. I like that. Oh, here, you can have that. Things like that. Or he sold it to somebody when he got there, traded it for something when he got there. Somebody stole it out of his car in his apartment complex. Any of those things could have happened, okay? So in turn, if Brian owned that at one point in time, that is how his DNA would have gotten on that, in my opinion. That's a very probable situation.
Yeah, because I'm having issues with it because, okay, you can establish his DNA on the knife sheet, but you can't seem to confirm how did he do this? How did he go about doing this? Whenever his DNA was not even found at the scene, other than that button on that knife.
That's the only way it was found, and it was inside the inside of the snap button too. Lucy just said there's 4 profiles found on the sheath. The PA trash had 3.
So somebody, I mean, I get it. I've heard a lot of theories about it. I mean, in the process of stabbing, maybe it fell off his belt loop or something.
I don't think that was ever on his belt loop, to be honest with you. I don't think he ever had it on him. I mean, and let me give you another situation here, okay? Truly think about this for a minute. And I came to this conclusion after learning one detail. I, in the beginning, thought that when they sent the DNA to be tested to Othram, that they sent the knife sheath. That's not what happened. They say that they swabbed the knife sheath snap and sent that off to be tested. And I'm sorry, people can get in my ass about this. I don't care. I don't trust them at this point to do something like that. Like I say before, and I know it's ignorant to say it. Hey, Leah, good to see you. They could have swabbed anything. They were all through his apartment, his office, his house, his car. I said it before as a joke. They could have swabbed his asshole for all we know, okay? And sent that off. Nobody knows that was on the DNA. We've never seen the damn sheath, for one. We've never seen anything about this sheath. We don't know about this, the chain of custody for real, any of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to say I'm not comfortable with them swabbing the inside of... Once again, I want to clarify what they swabbed, okay? And it's so ridiculously minuscule. The inside of a snap like this is what was swabbed, is what they claim. Why didn't you send this whole thing to the lab? Because God knows what else it could have had on it. They only sent a swab.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly, because wouldn't his fingerprints be all over it?
Well,
yeah,
I imagine
not just a nice. No, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Don't misunderstand me. I'm not just talking about the button on the knife sheet. I'm talking about the whole thing.
That's what I'm saying. I imagine they would assume he wore gloves. Okay, that's just my assumption on that. You should. You would assume that, truly. But even again, like I said, going down to the whole hemisphere, to the whole chain of custody and all of that's screwed up in my opinion. So I don't trust that. First off, that sheath was even there. But at that point that they swabbed that sheath and sent that off, and that's where the DNA came from. That's what my biggest issue with this whole thing is.
I think this is just my opinion, Dago. The only thing that really, truly makes sense, that sheath was planted.
Well, when Ann Taylor said that the sheath was placed there, I take that for that too.
So when did they place it?
Well, if you when I gave you guys a statement that was out of the Patterson book, okay? I don't know if you remember this or not. I don't. You might not have been here, but a lot of people were. But in the Patterson book, there's a statement, and I'm not going to give you word for word because it's been a minute, okay? But Brian's dad, Michael, ran into Jeremy Sava's mother. Brian and Jeremy were best friends. I don't know if they were at a drugstore, some store, or something. And he sees her and he says, whatever her first name is, Mary something, I think. Anyway, is that you? Blah, 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 so on and so forth. How are you, Michael, with everything going on? He says, well, we're doing okay. It's rough. Brian's mother doesn't really leave the house. I'm the one that goes and does all this, blah, blah, blah. All that fun stuff was talked about. And he looks at her and says, she goes, I'm so sorry for what you guys are going through. And then he says, I was sorry to hear about Jeremy because Jeremy, Brian's best friend, passed away due to drug overdose. Then he says, Brian didn't do this, right? And she goes, to Brian, I know. No, he didn't. And he says, well, there's a lot to this. There was a lot of people in and out of that house. There was a lot of drugs in that house. And then he says, and that knife sheath, it wasn't there when they said it was there. They didn't find that until somewhere down the line. It was not when they said it was. Now, you take that for whatever you want to take it for, but he's been going around this town and multiple ways. Willie told me this too, telling the whole world how his son is innocent and that he didn't do this. No matter what anybody says, it's not what it is. So I'm just saying. So I have a lot of issues with that. Okay, people are like, well, he bought the sheet that says he did it. No, it don't. No, it doesn't.
Well, when you send this is just my opinion. I'm not in law enforcement. I'm just using common sense. When you take somebody's DNA like that, and they go and put it through CODIS or whatever they put it through to make sure they have some criminal background and if they're in the system, and come to find out this guy is not in the system. So you take it a step further and you can say, oh, okay, I'll just take a cup out of the trash and maybe we'll get some DNA off the cup. Well, they're gonna put it through that system again. Well, depending on the father, that's how they connected him. What if he had a criminal background? We don't know that, but I'm just saying. Well, he's not in the system. So
right.
How do you get to know it's Brian Coburt's DNA? Well, we'll go. I know there's some websites about genealogical trees and finding out, who's the family, who's not in the family, whatever. Then I'm hearing, well, it's illegal for you to do that. They can't do that. I don't know, Dago. I don't know if it's legally for them to do that. Can they go through a heritage tree?
No, they weren't supposed to do that. That was not one of the. And I use this word because that's how I see it. People just say I'm saying it wrong, but I don't care. They use this a database that's not sanctioned for them to use, in my opinion. That's how I put it. They weren't supposed to use the MyHeritage. They're not. It's just not legal, okay? But they did. That tells me all I need to know. They took a shortcut to get what they needed to get, and that's why they did that. What they did, they shouldn't have done that. That's what it was. The only reason why I'm telling you what that quote that came out of the Patterson book is because if his father is making these statements, I can't imagine he would run around and tell something that he didn't believe himself was true. That's all I'm saying. It may not be true. I don't know for a fact. That it just says something to me that he's making that statement to somebody else. And do I want to believe it's true? Of course I do, because I don't believe any of this other shit. Who knows? But it does make some sense, okay? I think that they cut a lot of corners on this case during this investigation to hurry up and get somebody in cuffs for this, in custody for this, to shut down any worries within the community, okay? So that they didn't lose out on enrollment or anything like that or any kind of money, because at that moment, Scott Green was in the midst of doing certain things that were very important to have incoming finances for. And if that were to drop off, it could have caused problems. Not to mention, both Moscow and the university rely on each other to, be prominent, I guess you could say. So again, I'm just saying there's a lot of aspects to this that I understand that make me believe what I do. According to the ISP's lab website, in the case of touch DNA, the entire sample will be destroyed. There's nothing left to send to Othram for further testing. So, thank you. That is a banger. What was sent to Othram? Thank you, Yvonne.
My question is there a shelf life for touch DNA? Because that's been over 3 years now.
Of course there is. There was what is it? Depending on the what it's on. Okay, if that button was made out of brass, for instance, we did a whole show on this a couple years ago. If that was made out of brass, I think it's hours. I can't remember exactly, you guys. Maybe I'm wrong. It could be days. It's been 2 years, but somebody will remind me that's in here that was here when I did it. But if that button was brass, then yeah, within a certain period of time, it's you couldn't get anything off of it anyway. If it's stainless steel, it changes, okay? But there's definitely a shelf life for sure.
Yeah,
my problem is, what's up, Kane? My problem is I don't know that it even came off the knife sheath. That's all I'm saying. If he had enough of it to get inside that snap, then why wasn't it on anything else on that sheath? That's what I don't understand, for one. But it just bothers me. Firefly said they don't need the physical DNA. They just need the profile to send to Othram. Yeah. There is no way to verify a process that piece of evidence shouldn't be admissible. I agree. 4 hours. Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. 4 hours, the degrading starts to occur on brass. That was days. Okay. So, yeah, Sarge was really worked up about that one. We don't know if it. And when I looked it up and I pulled up the USMC sheet that was on Amazon, it looked to be a brass snap. That doesn't mean it was. I don't know for a fact because I never saw. They refused to show us this sheet. I don't know what to say. They didn't even swab the sheath until 3 days after the crime. That's another piece of information that's true. Why? You know what I mean? I once again, I want to see a photograph of this sheath where they said it was. I just do. I think that matters. And they obviously didn't do things the way they should have, in my opinion. So, just saying. Where are we at for time? 3:13. So we didn't even get to everything I wanted to. This is a long document, but it's really important. So I'm going to have to probably come back and do more of this. Welcome, Gretchen Winters. Good to see you. The sheath has enamel coating. It's not pure metal. But what about on the inside of it, Gretchen? That's what I don't understand is the snap on the inside, the female catch, okay, is where they got that from. So is that solid? Or, like you said, the enamel is on the top of it, but not on the inside, I wouldn't think. Is it a brass snap button or is it stainless steel is all I was wondering. And it was the smallest sample you could imagine, which is amazing to me. That's what I thought, that the inside wouldn't be coated, just the outside. They kind of put like an enamel on it so it doesn't wear down.
There's a lot of reasons why this thing case should have been thrown out, but it didn't get thrown out.
You ain't lying, bud. So what I think I'm going to do, you guys, is I think I'm going to come back tonight and finish this part of this up. That way I can hit on and show you guys the Garza stuff as well. And I forgot how much this was. So this will be a two-parter, okay? But I love the information that we're getting out of this, because a lot of this I didn't know, because I never got to go through this document, the redacted side to this. And there's more to this with the other experts. So my tongue is becoming numb from reading so much. And we've been here. I don't want to keep you guys here forever, just in case you want to go somewhere else. I'm gonna say about 8 o'clock. That way it's not so late and we can make it through without it being 1 a.m. Is that okay? Let me do it this way. That way everybody gets the option to vote on this. So let me ask you guys this real quick. Do you want me to come back this evening and do the second half to this, or would you rather do something else? If you want me to come back and do the second half to this and finish this up and go into the Garza stuff if I can, put a 1 in the chat. If you want me to do something different, put a 2 in the chat. Do that real quick before you guys take off. And I'm grateful to Alisi for bringing this up. And like I said, I had meant to do this at some point, and I just never got around to it because there was one, I'm ADHD, and if something else pops up in my face, I jump on that. But I'm loving this. I really am, and I appreciate your input today as well, Hemisphere, as I always do. And the way you look at things, I really appreciate it very much. I should have done this a long time ago, and I'm sorry that I didn't.
It's like I said, I'm not no lawyer. I'm not into the law enforcement, but I'm just real. I'm just like, okay, if you say that, show me that that's valid. I mean,
they should be showing that, but they don't have to. That's the problem. They don't have to show that to us, and we all know that. And that's how they have slid through the machine on this. Okay,
there's underneath it all. They go, and this is where I'm thinking. There's something really, really, really huge.
Yeah.
About that college, the president, or whatever.
Yeah, it just like Sai said, and I'm gonna stay with that until he proves me different. After the background that he has and all the years of experience he has, he's never seen anything like this. For him to make the statement that there has to be something way, way larger that they're covering up for whatever reason, and I agree with him. I want to know what.
Yeah, I've heard several theories, but I don't know if that's true or not. But this whole thing is a whole lot bigger, in my opinion, than Koberger. This is not even about Koberger at this point.
Not at all. It's way bigger than anybody in here could imagine, to be honest with you.
I even picked up on that, even the way they're treating Koberger. I mean, he's like a little bitty fish in that big ass pond they go over there.
That's why they're treating him the way they are, because they don't listen, and you know this from what you've seen, if they don't treat him this way and anybody starts to see him in any other way, shape, or form, that's going to deviate from their narrative. Okay, it's going to make people see him as a human being. That's not acceptable. You can't look at Brian as a human being. He's got to be that monster that did this, no matter what. He's that evil, dark monster that stares at people. It's fucking ridiculous.
And again, I'm gonna reiterate something I said in the very beginning about Stephen G. If you're so upset with Bill Thompson and how he does things, and he lied to you about everything else that you're on constantly coming and bragging about, complaining about, who's to say he will lie to you about Brian Koberger? They set that man up.
100%. There's no doubt in my mind. I've been there for a long time with this, so I agree.
It's like I said about the car situation. And in my opinion, the only reason why they got that car is the idea of, oh shit, we had a patrol that night, and it just so happened to be a white car. I'm not sure if it was a Lantra.
It's a silver car. It's a silver sedan, 4-door sedan, and a pure Ford Fusion is what it was, but it looks white in the light.
Yeah. So,
what's up, Twiz? So I got a lot of ones, so that's what I'm going to do here a little bit later, folks. I'll be back in here a few hours. I get some things I got to get done, and I'll finish up with these documents. I wanted to talk about the Garza thing too. You know, we've hit the deadline for Brian that everybody was worried about. Nothing has been put out there. We haven't seen anything. Tomorrow's Friday. There's going to be other documents coming too, but I want to finish this because it's very interesting to me. Good to see you, Twiz. And tomorrow, that new 2020 thing comes out, so there's going to be so much other stuff to talk about. So I want to get through this too, but I will be back here within a few hours. I'll cover this, finish this up, and talk about more. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Thank you to my mods, as always. Thank you, Hemisphere, for your input and for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you guys so very much, guys. Don't forget, just in case something crazy happens and I don't see it tonight, keep your fingers crossed that it don't. Don't forget, guys, to love yourselves and love each other. Don't change a thing. You guys are the beautiful people, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye, folks.
Cafe where the whispers play, secrets hide, bodies sway. True crime cafe in the night we stay. Truths decay, truths decay. Tango in the corner, eyes like stone, words like daggers, chilled to the bone. Echoes of screams on a borrowed phone. A city of shadows, you're never alone. Coffee cold, I can't think. Your buzz, tongue don't blink. Where they go, who's the link? You're never alone. In the sirens well, another ghost for the tale. True crime cafe where the whispers play, secrets hide, bodies sway. True crime cafe in the night we stay. Truths decay, truths decay. Ashtrays full, sins don't wash. Table stained, lies embossed. Fingers point but the lines are crossed. Justice sleeps at a heavy cost. Coffee cold, I can't think. Your buzz, tongue don't blink. Where they go, who's the link? They go in the corner, eyes like stone, words like daggers, chilled to the bone. True crime cafe, in the night we stay. Truths decay, truths decay. Tango in the corner, eyes like stone, words like daggers, chilled to the bone. Echoes of screams on a borrowed phone. The city of shadows, truths decay. Tango in the corner, eyes like stone, words like daggers, chilled to the bone. Echoes of screams on a borrowed phone. A city of shadows, you're never alone. Coffee cold, I can't think. Your buzz, tongue don't blink. Where they go, who's the link? Ashtrays full, sins don't wash. Table stained, lies embossed. Fingers point but the lines are crossed. Justice sleeps at a heavy cost.